Good evening, buenas tardes todos. Bienvenidos a nuestra junta. Good evening. Before I call this meeting to order, I'm just going to remind the public that if you would like to address the board, please remember that at the entrance there are some yellow open forum forms that you need to fill out, and you go ahead and turn it into Ms. Delgado if you'd like to address the board during open forum, okay? So again, good evening. I'd like to now call this meeting to order. Our Gadsden and Penn School District regular school board meeting for Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 5:02 p.m. Ms. Delgado, can you please take roll?
Mr. Cano?
Present.
Mr. Castillo?
Present.
Ms. Flores?
Present.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Present.
Ms. Murillo?
Present.
Madam President, we have established quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Delgado. Ms. Duque, you may come to the podium.
Good evening, school board members, Madam President, Superintendent Dempsey, and guests. We appreciate all of you being here today. Welcome, all of you, to Chaparral Elementary. At this time, I would like to introduce 5th grader Jaden Sandoval and 6th grader Ethan Cordero Munoz, who will lead us in the pledges. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the sea symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to introduce a wonderful and gifted young lady that we have had the privilege of having here at Chaparral Elementary. This young lady began her career with us 3 years ago as a student teacher, and during that time managed teaching students, student teaching, taking college courses, and then going into virtual learning. We here at Chaparral Elementary have been truly blessed with her joy, her positivity, her good cheer, and her talent. She is loved by her students and brings a ray of sunshine to our school. I am so very proud to introduce to you our amazing music teacher, Ms. Marisol Rodriguez.
Hello, I'm Ms. Rodriguez. I'm the music teacher here at Chaparral Elementary. We're super excited to present to you today. The students have been working very hard. This is our 5th and 6th grade piano after school program. We're going to be playing some Beatles songs. Those students are Ethan Cordero Munoz, Isaac Gonzalez, Lisa Hernandez, Jerry Medina, Lana Pruitt, Sofia Rodriguez, Jaden Sandoval. And aside of them playing, we also have some singers. We're going to have Ariana Guerra and Daniela Sala singing Imagine. Caleb Sanchez is going to be playing Blackbird on the guitar. Addison Soria will be reciting a poem by John Lennon. And then we'll finish off with Olanis Enriquez and Raimundo Vasquez singing Lovely Do. So thank you and enjoy the performance.
Dr. John Lennon. When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand love.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for that lovely rendition of the Beatles. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and thank you, Ms. Duque, for your hospitality. Okay, moving on to, I'm going to ask our Secretary Rodriguez to please read our mission statement.
The Gadsden Independent School will ensure that all students will learn by putting education first. The district will provide quality educational opportunities conducive to learning that will facilitate students' individual goals. El Distrito Escolar Independiente de Gadsden se compromete a poner en prioridad la educación de cada estudiante. El distrito proporcionará oportunidades educativas de calidad conducentes a un aprendizaje que facilite las metas individuales de los estudiantes.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Moving on to our Superintendent Dempsey's district updates and recognition. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, welcome. Thank you for this, for attending this evening. The first item we have is, I'm incredibly excited to talk about like things weren't going to get back to normal, and it's really starting to feel back to normal. And you also know this, it's no secret, if there's anything really quality that comes out of the superintendent's office, Ms. Delgado had a lot to do with it. She has headed this whole thing up along with another individual, Martha Ortega, there in my office. And so what she's done is worked with our vendors who are helping sponsor this event. And many of those, some of those vendors are here this evening, but I want to recognize all of them for helping financially support this event. So Ms. Delgado has, anyone that's in, any of our vendors that are in attendance, Ms. Delgado has a certificate for you. So when I call your name, if you'll come up, and then we'd love to get a picture with you. And then, of course, there's one other that at a future board meeting, they couldn't be here, but they'll be here at a future meeting. So our first sponsor that has supported our Teacher of the Year banquet is Santa Teresa Charitable Foundation. We have the MedTime Pharmacy, Brent Westmoreland, El Paso Office Products, and I think we might have an individual who's representing. Please come up and join us. We have a certificate for you. Okay, if you just want to start right here, and we'll just line everybody up. Thank you. And Ms. Delgado went over this one with me, and I'm going to mess up the pronunciation, but Union Granada Regional de Chihuahua Co-op Incorporated. We got El Paso Office Product, Plan B Network Incorporated, Nucinda Credit Union. I believe we have a representative here. Thank you. J&M Heritage Construction Company, Decision Tree, LD Supply, 9 Degree Architecture and Design Enhancement, World Class Education, Segovia's Distribution, Boone Transportation. I know I saw Christy Boone here. Please come join us. Alamo Industries, Dr. Mora, who we always need to thank you. Bob Fosna, and this is in memory of Dixie. Rebecca Navarre from Marzano Resources, and then AKS Architecture. I'll present each one of them their certificate, and if we can come up and get a picture, I'd appreciate that. Okay, thank you all for that. Our next item we have is our student representative. This is Kimberly Flores, who is a 12th grader at Desert Pride Academy.
Good evening, Superintendent Dempsey, Madam President, school board members, and guests, of course. My name is Kimberly Flores. I'm representing Desert Pride Academy. I'm a senior. It's great to be back. And a little bit that has happened in the few months since I last came here is I'm all my classes, thank God. My confidence are like through the roof. I'm not as nervous as the last time, y'all can tell, you know. One thing that has happened in Desert Pride is that we are proud to report that 86 Rattlers are graduating this May, including me. With the May and December graduates, there's going to be in total 144 students who are and has graduated this year in Desert Pride Academy. Thank you. We all did a survey on Panorama, We are proud to say that 77% of our students feel really safe at our school, which I'm really glad. 96% of our students feel respected by our teachers. 91% of students don't have to worry about having school fights or anything like that. And that, as you guys have heard, Desert Pride, you guys might think that's a bad school, which is not. As you can tell, these numbers say it's different. It's a really, really good school. No one knows what really happens in that school until you step in. In our CTE Health Science program this year, we have 68 students who have passed and will be receiving a certification for first aid and CPR by American Heart Association. In addition to that, one of our students had got a job on the state who is taking care of autistic children, and she was able to get the job real quick because she had from Capturing Kids' Hearts came visit us. And she was very impressed of the connection that we had with our teachers. And she was really impressed that she wanted us to become a national showcase school for Capturing Kids' Hearts. I'm really excited, even though our teachers been doing that before this. They really do care about their students. They treat us like if we were their own kids. They help us emotionally, socially, and if we need something, they're there for us. And I really appreciate it a lot. Pretty much, if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have the courage, I guess, to keep going to school every day and having. I'm talking for other students too, because that's how I feel too. And I asked them to, and then they say that we got some good teachers. We really do. But that's pretty much it. And I really want to appreciate all of you guys, Mr. Dempsey, Madam President, everybody, the board, for supporting Desert Pride.
Thank you, Ms. Flores, and thank you, Ms. Ludwig. Okay, we're down to board member report. Ms. Morillo, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Thank you so much for Chaparral for hosting. I've never been to this school, so it was nice to see you guys in the entrance. Please guide me. So I look forward coming again. That presentation was amazing. Having the kids here singing and these times especially, and the songs that they sang, I think it was perfect, right? I do want to give a big shout out to all the activities that we have across the district. They have been placing first place within the last week and a half. Maybe it's because I haven't been involved, or because they're actually placing this year. Whether it was a pandemic, kids are ready, they're ready to perform, they're ready to do business outside of whatever the school is. And I'm just very, very happy and proud to be standing here and be with you guys. Thank you to the parents, because this is not just the kids, this is the parents' effort, taking them to school, taking them to practices. One of them, Santa Teresa Band, they placed first division, so they're going to state next month to Albuquerque. I saw Gadsden for also first place. They placed in state. So lots of good things happening in the district, and I'm extremely proud of all these students. Thank you.
Mr. Cano?
How can I top that now? First of all, when I used to come down here with coffee with the principal or the superintendent, I've never made it this far. I made it to the library. I was like, God, I wish I had a library like that at home. Beautiful school, beautiful school. Band, when I heard that they were playing the Beatles for a minute there, I thought they were going to really rock out. Hey, but it's beautiful. It's good to be able to see students be able to play the instruments and come out here and sing among all these people. It took me a while before I can talk into a microphone. Congratulations to the SD band for winning the competition and now going to state. And that's all I can conclude with my members' report.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Mr. Castillo.
First of all, to Chaparral Elementary, thank you for your hospitality, and you can't go wrong with the Beatles. The songs, I think, in our time were appropriate, so that excellent choice kids were awesome. Last week, Madam President and myself attended the ACC meeting and getting ready for their commencement. The one thing that stuck to my mind as we're talking budget, we had a budget workshop over the weekend. The one thing that Dr. Torres said is that the businesses are asking for computer-savvy kids, right, into the workforce. So as we're talking budget, make sure that, we keep all that in mind for our programs and all that stuff, because Dr. Torres mentioned that the one thing that we're lacking, which is interesting because all our technology around, yet they're still, in need of that kind of, so just keep that in mind. And with that, that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Ms. Flores?
Good evening, everybody. So I'd like to start off by first wishing all of our March babies happy birthday. I do know somebody in the crowd over there. He's hiding behind that TV. Mr. Carmona, happy birthday, sir. And anybody else, feliz cumpleaños a todos los personas, niños, padres que nacieron en marzo. Y yo le doy gracias a Dios porque sí cumplí ¿cuándo cumplí? El domingo cumplí 46 años de vida y muchas gracias. So yes, my birthday was on the 6th of March and I'm 46 years old, proud to say. And so, so happy birthday, March babies, and enjoy the rest of your birthday month. And then also, thank you, Principal Duque, Assistant Principal White, Ms. Rodriguez, and your teachers, Ms. Kimberly Rueda, I saw Jennifer, and anybody who was in that. Thank you for hospitality. The food was delicious. Thank you so much. And beautiful presentation, Ms. Rodriguez. That was beautiful. I was like, give me a mic and let me join you singing. So beautiful renditions of the Beatles. Also, I'd like to report that that I attended along with some of our colleagues on last Saturday, we did have a finance budget meeting. Thank you, Mr. Dempsey, for having that for us. I want to thank our Chief Financial Officer, Ludin Martinez, who could not join us. I think she's in some training in Albuquerque this evening, but I want to thank her team, Erica Villalobos, Ms. Yolanda Rivera. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's always, you can never know too much about finance, and I'm constantly learning. It's like a big world, but awesome information, and then let's see what else. I'd also like to report that I'm not sure about Gadsden High School. I was trying to investigate, but I couldn't get it. But along with Santa Teresa High School, Chaparral High School, the Lobo concert, I think during the concert season must be concert band. They also scored a 1 for the music performance assessment. So receiving 1s is like the best score you can get. So congratulations, Lobos. Congratulations, Warriors. I'm pretty sure Gadsden High School, I hope they were out there too, representing our district. And then I also had the opportunity last Thursday to also attend the DACC. Mr. Castillo and I serve on that committee. And so I'd like to welcome the public. You can attend those meetings also. I think they're limiting right now, and they're not doing person, but you can definitely do Zoom. Maybe later on, we can maybe post those somehow in our social media, Mr. Dempsey, and share with the public so they can, the public can look at those. I'd just like to share that I did not know that you can work towards being an RN, a registered nurse through DACC, and it's more affordable. Maybe NMSU doesn't want me saying this, but I am an NMSU alumni, but I learned that you can get your nursing, the degree, they'll prepare you to take the test, right? And it's more affordable. And I was sharing how that DACC, because along with NMSU and probably any university throughout the United States, even before the pandemic, they've been losing enrollment. And so DACC is in a campaign to bring up their numbers in enrollment. But I was telling them how it is very important to also educate parents. And I was telling Dr. Torres that I myself am guilty of that. As parents, we have to not limit our students, our kids, by, like I tell my children, I used to tell my children, your choices after you graduate is you're either going to go into the military or you're going to go into a four-year college. So we've got to change as parents that, because it's about what's going to make our kids happy. And if it means going to DACC to get a, what do you call it, associate's degree, it's about what's going to make them happy. So yeah, I was telling them I could have gone and been an automotive mechanic instead of a teacher, although I love what I do, but there's many opportunities out there, and, you know, as parents, I would encourage our parents, you know, don't limit your children, and if they want to leave the house, let them leave, because they're going to grow. I wish I would have left. Not for bad reasons, you know, but because who knows who it could have been, but I'm grateful that I am a teacher, don't get me wrong. And I think that's all. I love the fact that this evening we were able to have our meeting here at Chaparral Elementary. For those of you who don't know, back in 1987, I was actually a student here at Chaparral Elementary when Chaparral Elementary was the only school out here in Chaparral. And then we would have to commute to Gadsden Junior High, which I didn't know that my colleague here is like a year older than I am. And so we were at the same school and didn't even know for years, but probably we were together at Gadsden Junior High and we didn't even know. I didn't know. But anyways, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Ms. Flores, for telling everyone my age. I appreciate that. No, it's no big deal. First of all, I want to thank our student representative. As she said earlier, this time around she wasn't as nervous. I really, really appreciate that, and that's exactly what we want of our students, right? We want them to be participating, to be become advocates. And so thank you for the great information you gave us about your school. Next, something that she mentioned about the panorama survey. That is something that we need to be a part of. This is not only for students. We will be getting some surveys out for parents, and so for parents, for staff, everyone can participate, and it is critical. In order to make changes, we need to be proactive, and so this is going to be a very, very good way to gauge how the campus is working or what needs are out there. So please, again, it's the panorama survey. Be looking out for that. I attended several coffee with the principal, and it's amazing. You know, I want to give a shout out to all the principals. I have had several conversations with principals, and I think that you all do a phenomenal job. And listening to all the things that you need to be aware of, you need to be acquainted with so many things, it's amazing. It's amazing the great job that you do within your campuses. I know sometimes change is difficult, and just keep in mind that whenever there's a change, it's more than likely to make it better. So thank you for all you do. You are amazing people along with your staff. So, as I always say, please, as a community, please attend those coffee with the principal, coffee with the superintendent, and then Mr. Dempsey also holds a morning message for the staff. So it is important, again, your voice is important. And so your thoughts are needed, whether it's sometimes you might not hear what you want to hear, but it is important to make everyone aware that those are the needs that are happening. And lastly, I want to thank Ms. Duque and her amazing team here. So this is a hard one for me. We heard those amazing songs, and the very first one, Imagine, is something that I live by. You know, I always say that that's in my bucket list, so actually when I kick the bucket, that's one of the songs that I want to be played during my funeral. And so it was a very heartwarming moment, because the teacher that did this is my daughter. So thank you, Marisol. I am so very proud of you. And just as Marisol is back there, as I am proud of her, I am proud of all of our students, and that is exactly what I seek. I'm sitting here because I want to be your voice. I want you all to know that as difficult as it is, and again, as the challenges that we all meet and that we go through, sometimes it's not easy to move, but if we want to change and we think about our kids and we imagine working together, we can make a difference. So thank you, everyone that's here tonight, and let's continue moving forward and making this district, it's already amazing, but I know that there's still room for improvement, and we can achieve that by all working together. So I really look forward for us to continue that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Mr. President Flores?
Thank you once again for joining us this evening. Okay, moving on to item 4, which is our human resources report. Please do note that that is information, no action is required by the board. That's just information for the public. And thank you, Dr. Browder and your HR staff for preparing those reports. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, which is the modification of our agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda as is.
Vice President Castillo has made a motion to accept the agenda as is. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor? Aye. That motion passes. Moving on to item 6, our regular school board meetings for February 24, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the regular school board minutes for February 24th, 2022.
Secretary Rodriguez has made a motion to accept item 6. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Mr. Castillo has made a motion to accept the consent agenda as is. Superintendent Dempsey?
Madam President, board members, I without a doubt recommend. I want to point out 2 items, H and I. The reason why these 2 items are very important, it's unique this time of year. H has to do with the submission of the ARP application, and what we're asking is to allow a submittal, and we'll bring it back for ratification to the board. We want to make sure we don't get bound up on some timelines here, because our next board meeting is not till the first week of April. And then I allows us to close up all the this year's budget and prepare next year as we're going through that process. All that information will be presented back to the board. So I just point those 2 items out that are unique.
Okay. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns regarding the agenda, the consent items? Okay. So Mr. Dempsey has recommended it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to our open forum. Ms. Delgado, do we have any speakers this evening?
Madam President, we have one open forum tonight.
Okay. Okay, so we do have one speaker this evening, Mr. Raimundo Vasquez. And if you can step up to the podium. Hi, Mr. Vasquez, how are you? I'm doing great. Let me go ahead and read a little brief statement, and then I'll go ahead and give you the floor, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so just a reminder to the public and to any speaker that approaches the open forum, our podium actually, is that personal attacks upon board members, staff personnel, or other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board are strongly discouraged. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that convey an unjustly unfavorable impression may subject the presenter to civil action for defamation. Policies KE, KEB, KEC, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those involving individuals. And Mr. Vasquez, you do have 3 minutes, and Ms. Delgado is going to be keeping time, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm here to talk about the ROTC program. Santa Teresa has an ROTC program. Gadsden has an ROTC program. We don't have an ROTC program here in Gadsden. As you well know, that an ROTC program to the school it's a big benefit, not only to the students but to the community itself. What the ROTC program does is it creates good leaders, respectful leaders, And what we are lacking here in this community is an ROTC program. I know I've spoken with Mr. Dempsey. It's about 2018, 2019, last time you were here. And we kind of have a brief conversation on that. Unfortunately, all this from the pandemic just came in and I did not follow up, but we had spoken. So I think right now would be a good moment to come in here and talk to you, actually, the board, and see what we can do to bring in an ROTC program here to Chaparral. I had spoken with the principal also, and I was told that because all the core classes and all the STEM classes had not been filled yet, so the ROTC program was just going to be put to the back burner, but I don't think that's right. So that's not right for the school and youth, for the community, for the kids. If you know a student that goes a 4-year program and then wants to go into the military, when they go into the military, they go into as an E2, E3. If a student that just graduates and wants to go to the military without that four-year program, four-year ROTC program, he will just start at the bottom, which is an E1. So I don't think it's fair for the students that want to pursue the military career from here in Chaparral for them not to have that program. My daughter, she went to Gadsden for 4 years. We took her every day from here to Chaparral to Gadsden. 4 years for her to attend that ROTC program over there because we did not have anything here. So I would highly suggest and see what we can do and how we can work together to bring an ROTC program here to Chaparral that we definitely need. I know we lost I think it was an automotive program or a welding program. And another thing that was told is there was no classroom for an ROTC program. Now we have one. So I don't see any reason why an ROTC program shouldn't be implemented here in Chaparral. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez, for addressing the board. And just so the public knows, because of our Open Meetings Act, we cannot respond to them. But do know, public and Mr. Vasquez, that our Superintendent Dempsey will reach out to you. That's why I handed back that yellow form, because he'll be contacting you. But thank you very much for your insight. Okay, now we're going to move on to item 9A, which is our action items. So the first action item for this evening is our NMSBA Excellence and Student Achievement Award. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this particular item is an annual award given by the School Boards Association. What we've done, or I got to be much more specific, what a group and along with Ms. Delgado has helped create a process to where we can nominate staff members throughout the district. There's 4 different classifications: support staff, teacher, administrator. We give 2 for support staff. Now, the committee then, the winners last year are the ones that serve on the committee to determine the winners for this year. So they go through all the nominations. And they have a little bit of room to make some additional decisions. And so they did something a little unique where they felt like there were actually 2 administrators that they felt were nominated and deserved recognition. So what I'd like to do is read to you the individuals that the committee has selected. I would ask, it is an action item, and this is due actually, I think, literally either tonight or tomorrow. And so we'll send those in, and the School Boards Association will then prepare those awards for us, and then at a later meeting, we'll get to recognize them. And then we also, Ms. Delgado has created a wall there at the administrative complex where their names will go on it as recipients. So, support staff, we have Cora Ramirez, who is a member of our technology department. Sophia Hernandez, who is part of our federal programs and a POA. David Ubinger is a teacher from Chaparral High School. Administrators, we have 2 of them. Veronica Quinones, principal of Gadsden Middle School, and Hema Suggs, principal of Santa Teresa High School. I would ask then for, I would recommend we approve those.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the nominations for our NMSBA Excellence in Student Achievement Award? No? Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the nominees for the NSBA Excellent in Student Achievement Award.
Okay, so Dr. Castillo has made a motion. Superintendent Dempsey? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So congratulations to those nominees. Thank you. Okay, moving on to action item 9B, which is the Chaparral Middle School Ed Specs final report. Superintendent Dempsey?
Madam President, board members, Ms. Vela is going to help us with this item and several others this evening. Welcome, Ms. Vela.
Good evening, President Flores, board members, and Superintendent Dempsey. It's my pleasure to bring to you this evening the Chaparral Middle School Building System Analysis and Campus Master Plan and Educational Specifications Final Report for Action.
Ms. Vela, here comes Mr. Carmona to aid you because I think you need to get that mic a little bit closer to you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this project was discussed and presented on the last by corporate strategies in the board meeting of February 24. And the report also had been reviewed by PSFA, the Public Schools Facility Authority, and it's good to go. Upon your approval, the next step will be to submit the report to the PSEOC for the next out-of-cycle funding phase to include approval of the design enrollment. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Because I do have some before I'm going to allow any of you.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
Ms. Vela, you mentioned that so what step are we at? Because you said the PSEOC will then have the plans to be approved, or can you?
No.
I'm sorry.
Okay, this phase is the planning phase. They're just the education specifications and a general master plan and building analysis report. The next step is to submit this report to the PSEOC, and then so they can also give us the funding for the next step that is going to be the design.
So during the design, will that be provided to the principals of those campuses? I know that there was their input in order to do the ed specs. And so during that phase, they will be provided that design before it is approved, or once the design is there, it's a done deal?
No, on the design, we're going to involve also our departments, that is going to be maintenance, also with the architect and the engineers that were selected, as well as we can include the administrators for the school, so they can also give us the input once we move on with the design. During the design, we do it on reviews, the 30% review, 60%, and then the 90%. And on those reviews, we're going to be able to give us their input, as well as we discover all the findings on the school in depth, the existing condition, what needs to be replaced or repaired during the design.
Great, thank you. Yes, I just feel that it's important to include the principals, since they're the ones that practically live in those campuses.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so anybody else? No? Okay, so Ms. Vela, I do have concerns and lots of questions. So I'm wondering, how do I want to say this? Okay, so last time in the presentation, it was recommended that Chaparral Middle School be remodeled. And so my questions come from the concern that from the previous experience of Gadsden Middle School. So, back in 1987, I was actually a student at Gadsden Middle School, and at that time, they were renovating it. So to me, it was like state-of-the-art, wow. And then between the time that I was growing up to becoming an adult, now being on the board, I learned that another remodeling took place, and now being on the board, realizing that the school is not adequate based on the other report, which we'll be going in here shortly into. And so I'm just afraid, I'm concerned that I don't want Chaparral Middle School to go through the same thing as Gadsden Middle School, where, you know, and for the public's sake and for my sake, because I forget, who was the one that did the recommendations, the report?
It was the firm Cooperative Strategies.
Okay.
They're the ones who gave us their recommendations.
So the firm did recommend, and it's a lengthy for the public. It's sitting out here from Chaparral and also listening on stream. You know, those, that report is available to everybody from the previous school board. And so, yes, you know, I did go through it, and the specification set or the recommendation is for that. But that's my concern, you know, to you and to Mr. Dempsey, is that I don't want us to go through another Gadsden Middle School. The other concern is, you know, with the thought that the district is thinking about possibly one day in the future, I don't know how near the future, moving our sixth graders to the middle schools. My concern is that, you know, and we were having a meeting earlier, you know, the recommendations for how big to build. If we end up moving those sixth graders, that school building, whether it's remodeled or demolished and rebuilt, is no longer going to be able to house those incoming sixth graders. So I'm gonna, I guess, allow you to answer, and then I'll ask more questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one, it was based on the recommendation that you say for the firm. They was need to be remodeled. It was more helpful that replaced the whole school. And then on this one, it was presented before in the last year to the PSCOC as a system base in the beginning. The system base, it was based more on very simple renovations to the school. Mm-hmm. But then based on the facility condition index, PSFA recommend to do it on a standard base, that it's a major renovation or the replacement of the school. So this time, with the report that we received from Cooperative Strategies, and for the budget that they have, their recommendation and their opinion that they're giving on the report, it's based on the facility age and the construction type that they have right now. The construction type, it will last like 60 more years. Right now, it's around the 25, 29 years old. Mm-hmm. So this will gonna be the renovation, a major renovation, and the building in HVAC, everything on lighting, plumbing, and this renovation will include also minor structure renovation. Mm-hmm. This one, but it's more like on keeping just the same, like the shell of the school. Mm-hmm. And then renovate from there, and then also adding an additional space for music. So on this one, we're just going to include major renovation, including everything. And once we get on the design, we're going to get on depth to get all the discovery on all the issues that the school have, and then all the input for maintenance. And so we can just include these renovations into the design phase, so everything could be implemented in the construction.
Okay, so then based, like, if, you know, looking at the report, it does have a lot of issues. You know, community members have shared with me concerns that there's constant leaks, that there's cracks in the foundation, cracks here. I even see it in the report. And so my concern too is, if it sounds like, for lack of a better word, it sounds like we're going to, the recommendation is to gut it out, meaning I'm not a construction worker, that's not my area of expertise, but to me what I imagine is completely like gutting it, leaving just like the walls, and you know, so I think based on what I heard is because it's 29 years old, that's why the recommendation to do a major renovation. And I guess my other question would be, when you're saying major renovation, are we, and I'm gonna use the word remodeling, I guess? We're going to replace things that are new, right? Because, you know, I don't want the same thing also to happen. And I was sharing with Mr. Dempsey, is it did come to my attention that Desert Trail, when they remodeled that facility, the restrooms in in some wings, they still kept same toilet, same, toilet, I believe, mirrors. And I'm thinking, come on, if we're going to renovate this, remodel, our kids deserve new stuff, not, you know what I mean? So how would you answer that question? How much are we going to be gutting it out and replacing with new stuff?
Yeah, during the design, and then it's going to be our discover on the what needs to be replaced completely. On the recommendation, it also mentioned that all the plumbing fixtures and restrooms will be new. Also on the walls, exterior windows, as well as the lighting, HVAC, because right now there are with sun coolers, I believe, so just to replace everything. Also on the roofing, to avoid on the leaks that they have right now. On the roofing, right now, it's the warranty. They have warranty, and it's until 2029. So we can consider just to see, based on the timeline that we have during the design and the timeline with the construction, we're just getting closer for the roof the roof warranty to expire. So we may consider it to replace it, or during the design process, we can just also repair it with a warranty. But all these things are going to be assessed during the design process, so we know everything is covered and renovate.
Okay.
And that includes flooring, walls, and also the report recommends to reconfigure spaces. So probably just can also move on classrooms, like we can just move maybe the science labs on here, all the music. In this case, they're recommending to add the new addition for music and reconfigure the kitchen and everything else.
Okay. And then as far as, so it's sounding to like the electrical wiring. So if I'm understanding correctly, by gutting it out, we're leaving it skeleton and replacing like everything? Like, where are those specifications going to come into place? Because I know we're in the planning stage.
Yeah, this is only just like a general recommendation that needs to be presented to the PSCOC. But during design is when we do everything, when we assess everything on the electrical, the wiring, the data, and that needs to be new, or to see the age also of the items, of the current items and the condition of the school. Okay. But during the design is when we discover everything, and we just say, hey, we need to replace the whole thing, or on the fixtures, on the plumbing or electrical. But it's going to be under the design process.
Okay. Is there any point where, through the designing phase, that, like right now, the report, this was just, I'm assuming the inspectors came and just visually saw, the outside. One of the other concerns is I did hear that sometimes there's like a foul smell in the gym, which leads me to believe it's plumbing. So how do we know that the plumbing underneath our foundation is still good? Because if we gut it out, renovate, and then we have problems, we're going to have to dig in there, I would assume, to correct that, which means we're messing with the foundation, and which I'm thinking, will mess up, so if that were to help, hopefully that's not going to happen, but in the event that does happen, how will we take care of that?
Oh, no, during the design, we start from the bottom. We just ask also maintenance. We go also with maintenance, with all the work orders that they have. They say, hey, we have a lot of issues here. And then this time is when we get the architects and the engineers to discover all these findings and all these issues. And they say, well, we can start, and if it's a major renovation, we can dig on, like you say, on the gym and see what the problem is. And we can just start from there, repairing, and then going to the other renovations.
So while the report, so I just want to make sure also that my community knows that I'm advocating, because I know I did receive some phone calls and they're asking me, why not a new school? And I'm like, I will advocate, but I need to, we need to find out why the report is recommending what it is. And I guess I would say that, so what it sounds like, this is the planning. It sounds like the recommendation is to remodel. Now, when that starts, obviously design will come into place, and I agree with our Secretary Rodriguez that definitely involve administrators. They know their building. But it also sounds from what you're saying is while they're constructing or remodeling, if they see something or the principals are bringing concerns such as plumbing, there is a possibility that they can, because plumbing is a big time concern for me at this point, it sounds like they can make a hole and maybe, I don't know how they do it, put a camera in there, I don't know, to check that. And if they do if there's findings that it has to be replaced, then they would come to us, sir? And then, does it make sense what I'm asking? Because that's my biggest concern is I see the recommendations, but I just want to make sure they're the professionals and we're trusting them. I just don't want the same thing to happen as Gadsden Middle School.
Madam President, Board members, a very legitimate concern, and Ms. Vela, make sure I'm clear on the process. When we get into design phase, that comes back to the board for discussion, correct?
Correct.
So this won't be your only opportunity as a board. One of the things, Ms. Vela, let's be sure that, especially Ms. Flores, and then when we get on the next item, when we talk to Gadsden Middle, we get those area representatives involved in that process so that when we have those meetings, they get to hear those experts, if you will, discuss why they're making certain recommendations. One note I have here, and this is the hard part. Keep in mind there's this balancing point, and it tips one way or the other sometimes. If you remodel or renovate a facility, you're very likely to end up with more square footage than if you rebuild to get a brand new one. So that's that balancing point that says, well, am I willing to sacrifice a little bit larger facility to get a new one? And I think that's a reasonable conversation. Or is it more important to me to get increased square footage because they won't deduct square footage from us. So you may end up with more square footage if you go the renovation route. But those are great questions, and I'm going to continue to ask those and press those individuals who are making those decisions to get your answers as to why, because we need those plumbing experts and engineers to explain to us how are you going to ensure that our plumbing works correctly and we don't have bad odors in our facilities. We do not want that in any way, shape, or form.
So, thank you, Superintendent Dempsey. So this evening, I just want to make sure, so when we vote and however the board votes, that means that doesn't automatically say that we're going to remodel it, or yes? What are we voting on this evening?
Madam President, I honest to goodness, I can't answer that. I don't believe today's vote confirms remodel or rebuild. I think this begins you're approving the next steps after you're approving the ed specs and you're approving the beginning of the design phase. And at that point, I still think the district can make some choices that say, you know what, we've looked at this and based on ed specs, because you need this information to make that decision. Mm-hmm. We would prefer one or the other. Mm-hmm. And I think those are reasonable requests, and it is possible after this vote to do so.
Okay. That feels good. For the possibility, I just want things to be done right. For any of our schools, I'd be advocating the same thing for any school, because we don't want to gut something out and then just lesson learned from Gadsden Middle School. We don't want that to happen again. Hopefully not. So, any further questions, comments, or concerns?
Madam President, Ms. Vela, I'm going to assume that, the design, they're not just going to gut the school and build it up the same way, right? I'm going to assume. So, I mean, that being said, many years in construction, I'm sure that in the design, plumbing, electrical, and all this will change. And if there's change, it has to be new, right? So again, You know, maybe, I don't know that it's peace of mind, but yeah, you know, when you remodel, you know, my background, when you remodel, you don't put it back up the same way, you know, because then why remodel, right? Just paint it again and it's a brand new room. If you're gonna remodel, you're gonna, so I'm just saying, you know, a little peace of mind, that when they do the design, again, it's been my experience, you know, for every time I've been on the board, you know, they do get the administrators, so a little peace of mind, it will change. They're not just gonna redo it all over again the same way, so. And you can, from what I saw in the report, number one, a brand new school is $10 million extra, right? That, más o menos, that's what they said, with $10 million for a brand new school on top of whatever the remodel was. And as far as the remodeling, the plumbing, they said that the school building itself had a strong foundation. That's why they're recommending it. I'm sure that if they found anything wrong with it, you know, like Gadsden, I think the reason they're opting for the junior high to be a brand new one is because it's going to be a mess to try and make it look right? I mean, that's what the report said. It's going to be a mess. So again, 6 one way, half a dozen the other. So, but a little peace of mind.
Yes. No, if there's no further questions, comments, or concerns, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept action item 9B, Chaparral MS Ed Specs Final Report.
Vice President Castillo has made a motion to accept action item 9B. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Moving on to action item 9C, Gadsden Middle School Ed Specs Final Report. Superintendent Dempsey?
Ms. Vela will again present this item.
Okay, President Flores, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. This time I'm just going to bring you the Gadsden Middle School Building Analysis Report and Master Plan and Educational Specifications Final Report for Action. This project was discussed on the last meeting. It was also reviewed by PSFA. They are good to go. And the next step will be to present this report to the PSEOC for the next cycle. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Madam President, I do.
Go ahead, ma'am.
So thank you for that information. I think it's probably very similar to the Chaparral area, or I'm sorry, Chaparral Middle School. But yes, I hear Ms. Flores' concerns because, you know, looking at the report and the analysis, I see that the multipurpose room has a corridor addition from 1964, and it was built in 2009. So I know that currently there's a lot of issues with that, and I know that, you know, the report, that is why they do the analysis, right? And so I also want to assure that, or I want to make sure that we take those things into account and really, really focus on correcting them. I know the other one is like the science lab. I remember going into that building and the teacher was sweeping out water. And so, you know, thinking about that one was built, you know, the addition was also built in 2009. So that's not too long ago for it to be having those kind of issues. So I think that paying attention to those details and making sure that 10 years from now, we're not going to be facing problems of that nature. And also with the plumbing, I know that there's several areas in those buildings. I believe the gym is one of them. You know, I don't think it's very productive for our kids to be within a building that has an odor that is not very, very kind, very nice. So thinking about that, and then on this, I think the plan is completely different, and it's moving, right? It's almost like moving the front building towards the back, and it would be in addition to the vocational and to the gym. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Am I?
Board President, board members, yes. On the Gadsden Middle School, it was recommended to do the new school, to replace the new school. So in this case, to work on for construction, it will be built on the back of the current school, you know, and then From there, once it's done, the construction, we just move the kids and demo the old school. But on this one, yeah, it's the whole school, the new one.
Right, because, another of the concerns, which I'm very, very happy to hear that, because that building, it's almost like a building of its own, right? So there has to be a lot of preparation when it comes to the heating and cooling, which is, for the staff and for the students, I don't think it's very appropriate for them to almost, and more than anything for administration or for whomever takes care of that, making a decision of how the weather's going to be like in order to make that change. So I appreciate that that's going to be modified and corrected. And one big one, I know that, of course, this is almost like a must, that there's ADA compliance and every location of the building, and making sure that those really fit, and not just certain areas. I've seen buildings where, yes, in some areas it's very, very visible that it is compliant, but then there's other areas where there's not that opportunity. So looking at that is also, I believe, important, and of course, not making just patches or putting on a Band-Aid. If the areas that we are going to keep, and I hear what Mr. Castillo is saying, that it's almost like a given that these things will be done, but unfortunately, many times we see otherwise. So I think this is the time to make sure that we do the correct thing, and knowing for the future, it's not going to affect in the near future anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Before I go? Okay, I just want to make sure, because yes, I'd be advocating for any school, guys, any school that is built right, because all our children in the district deserve the best. And so I was talking to some constituent, and she was telling me, maybe, because she also went to Gadsden Middle School, and I don't know if this is correct, but she goes, maybe the reason that it sounds like there's major foundation problems with that school, with my school, as my middle school, is I just want to make sure that when we get into that planning phase, that, again, not an expert at this, but that we pack that ground well, so that our foundation is strong, because she was mentioning to me, which I don't know, she says she's got experiences, like, she says a long time ago it used to be a pasture, and so, you irrigate that, so when you've got water that's saturated, maybe that's why, who knows? But yeah, just, I'm sure that all of us, all 5 of us, as long as we're in the board, we'll just know, that I want the public to know that it'll always come, every phase will come through us, correct, Mr. Dempsey?
Madam President, board members, yes. Without a doubt, the board will have another opportunity to see these. I'm trying to write these questions down, so help me keep a log of these questions, so we're specifically asking those when those engineers are there, so that we're, to Mr. Castillo's point, I think, everything has to come up to code. When you do a remodel, everything has to come up to code. But we want to be sure of that, and let's have that assurance, so that our community then knows they're getting the best for their money.
Okay. And then my last question is, other than, for both, for any, not only for Gadsden, but for Chaparral, any time that a remodeling or demolition, rebuilding is going on, besides the public being aware of it through board meetings, is there any other plans to, I guess, I don't know, because, would this be the only venue where parents get their information, or who can they contact? Can they contact us to then relay questions to you, or who do we direct them in case the public has questions?
Madam President, board members, our stakeholders can always reach out to board members, myself, to share their concerns, but there'll be opportunities, but they would need to engage in those opportunities. That's sometimes one of our struggles is we advertise opportunities, we get just a little bit of input, or sometimes very little, and then after we've already passed a phase, then we get input. And really, in construction, too little too late it means it's not going to happen. And so we got to be really aware of where we're at in the process. We'll work really hard to get the information out, and then if we have anybody that wants to share some input, we're always open to that. But now's the time to start having those conversations. We can't be awarding bids and then be starting to change scopes of work. That's way too late. We've already got a contractor agreed to very specific items, and we're not going to be able to accomplish that. So now's the time to get a list of those concerns down, and let's make sure that they are addressed during this process.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments regarding this action item?
I just want to make a comment that what Mr. Dempsey said in engaging, for anyone that's interested, you can go to the last board meeting agenda, and that's where you're going to see this report. And it's a very small report. It's only 153 pages. But if you're truly interested in making a change and looking at what the plan is here, please, this is a way of becoming engaged and getting information as what the needs are. And then from there, you can start asking questions. Many times we just need to participate in order to know what is happening. So again, this is on the agenda from last board meeting.
Okay, and I would just add is it's not just parents, you know, you don't have to have a kid in our schools to be, you know, if you live in the Gadsden Independent School District, you are more than welcome to participate at any of our events, so please do so. And so with that, I'm going to ask for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept action item C, the Gadsden Middle School IDSPEC's final report.
Secretary Rodriguez has made a motion to accept action item 9C. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to action item 9D, our Gadsden High School varsity gym HVAC replacement. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, again, Ms. Vela is going to present this item.
President Flores, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. This time we have the Gadsden High School gym, varsity gym HVAC replacement project for action. We received 2 proposals from 2 different contractors. As you can see in the table on your attachments, the 2 contractors were evaluated, and ESA was the one who got the most points with a total of 539.32. As per the final ranking, we recommend ESA. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments, or concerns? I don't believe we have any. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept action item 9D, Gadsden High School varsity gym HVAC replacement.
Vice President Castillo has made a motion to accept action item 9D. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to action item 9E, Berino HVAC replacement. Superintendent Dempsey?
Madam President, Ms. Vela again.
For President, board member, Superintendent Dempsey, we have Berino HVAC replacement project for action. As well, we received 2 proposals from 2 different contractors for this project. As in your table, on your attachment, the 2 contractors were evaluated, and ESA was the one who got the most points with a total of 398. After reviewing all the proposals, the committee decided that interviews will not be needed for this project, and as per the final ranking, we recommend ESA. Do you have any questions?
Colleagues, questions, comments, concerns on this action item? Tampoco, Ms. Vela. Okay, so let's moving on. Let's see, Mr. Dempsey. Actually, not before Mr. Dempsey. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept action item 9E, Berino HVAC replacement.
Okay, Mr. Castillo has made a motion to accept action item 9E. Superintendent Dempsey.
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to action item 9A. 9F. Thank you. I forgot my letters of my alphabet here for a moment. Okay, let me see. So 9F, which is Anthony HVAC replacement, and that's Anthony Elementary. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, Ms. Vela, we finally have our last item, and I think Mr. Geigo set you up.
Yeah. Board President, board member, Superintendent Dempsey. This time it's the Anthony HVAC replacement project for action. As well, we received 2 proposals from 2 different contractors. And on your table, you're going to find that we evaluated 2 contractors, and ESA was also selected for this project with a total of 389.72 points. As well, after reviewing all the proposals, the committee decided that interviews will not be needed for this project. And as per the final ranking, we recommend ESA. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments, or concerns? I guess I'm just going to ask this question so the public knows. Can you explain to the public what do you mean by interviews are not needed?
Yes, board members and superintendent, we evaluate each proposal. Was evaluated by 4 raters. The evaluation consists in 3 parts: is the technical proposal, the price, and interviews. On the interviews, each section award 50 points. That is giving a total of 150 points per rater. And sometimes when we get the points from the technical proposal and the price, and it's higher and it's a big difference, the interviews are not needed for the grade and then for the ranking. So, but it's like on the project, the previous project, it was very close after the technical and the price. So we held the interviews so we can have a very fair, more fair ranking.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Superintendent, actually, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept action item F, Anthony HVAC replacement.
Okay, Secretary Rodriguez has made a motion to accept action item 9F. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Vela.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action item 9G, our GISD policy JKD membership of review hearing authority. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, we had a discussion about this last meeting. Several of you sent me names of individuals, community members that met a very specific criteria, and I believe that criteria is up in front of you. Let's make sure. So each member would have to have some experience as a supervisor or in a business or government agency, be familiar with application of policy and procedures, on discipline procedures, and be a resident of the district and not a parent of a student in the district. So those are a little tricky, right, to find enough. However, with your help, we have found several, and today had several individuals we were able to contact, and they have agreed to serve. What I also want the board to understand is as we reviewed this is very specific for consequences given to a student longer than a semester. Anything less than a semester, there's no appeal. I'm sorry, there's no, that didn't meet the standard to come to this committee. So while they could still have an appeal for anything less than a semester, this group is a group that only hears consequences out longer than a full semester. Okay, so there's some stipulations with this committee. What we would do is if we had those situations and the parent requested a review, 2 of the members that each of you gave me would be assigned to a committee with a GISD administrator that meets this same criteria and has a 3B license. That's from legal counsel's guidance, so that then we have a way to review confidentiality requirements and get signatures for those. And so an administrator would work with 2 community members. They would hear the review and the case from each, the parent and then the school, and then they could uphold the decision of the school or the hearing. They could dismiss it completely, or they could modify it. Okay? And what I did was, I didn't know if all those individuals want their names up on a board, because if somebody knows their child's up in that, they might want to know who's on that committee. And while, we're talking about in an open meeting, you could do an IPA request to get this list. I didn't know how comfortable they would be, so I didn't put it up, but I did send each of you a copy of it, and each name that's highlighted on it has already agreed. And so we have a significant pool already. The idea being is that we identified several people in the Chaparral area, several people in the ST area, several people in the northern area. So if we had appeal from the northern area, we would assign someone from Chaparral and ST. If we had an appeal from Chaparral, we would assign people from the northern area, Gadsden, or ST, trying to ensure that there's no connection between someone knowing someone, and trying to remove any biases that might be present. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, but I couldn't open your, it says that I need access. I don't have permission.
I didn't give you access?
I think you need to be in your Gmail, your
Oh, make
Gadsden.
sure you're logged into your district Gmail account, not a personal Gmail account. No? Okay, but you can see his, okay. And your three agreed. Wait, you gave me two names, and they agreed.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Ms. Murillo?
So, I'm sorry, this is the first time that I'm looking at this. The ones that are highlighted, those are the people that have said yes?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Murillo, the individuals highlighted were contacted, spoken to, and have 100% agreed. I think there's only two names, maybe there might be one by the end of the day, that we weren't able to contact, but we'll continue to do so and give them that opportunity. And what we're trying to explain to them is these are not very common. It only happens, I don't want to jinx us, once or twice a year. However, when they do occur, there's a timeline I have to meet. So I kind of already have to have a pool of people that I can draw from, and then we set that up.
Okay.
Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam President. So when this does happen, will there be like a coin toss between the 12 that agreed, or how would you go about selecting the committee or the two committee members for the specific hearing?
Madam President, Secretary Rodriguez, great question. I think the simplest thing to do is, like we talked about, so if it's an appeal from the Gadsden area, let's say, we're going to then only utilize individuals that are currently reside in Chaparral and ST, and then we're just going to rotate. So probably what we'll try to do is pick one from the ST area and one from the Chaparral area if we have a Gadsden one. If we have a Chaparral appeal, we'll try to pick one from the northern area, one from the southern. Now keep in mind that when we select those, and we'll rotate that, but when we select them, we also have to ask them, do you know this family or their children? Because the reality is, New Mexico is a relationship state, and many people know each other and are related. So if they are related, then we'll have to go to the next choice, okay? Or if they're close to those individuals. So on a rotating basis is how I would answer that. And then each year, what I'd like to do is bring this list back to you each year, let you approve it, we'll add it, change it, modify it, and then I'd actually like to do a training each year with with this entire group every summer so that they're prepared for what they might experience. Just a little half-day training, a couple hours to help them feel comfortable. We can do it virtual as well, so they feel comfortable about what they're getting themselves into and understand the process, if you will.
Superintendent, I just have one, it's the same question I had last time. Is there a need to wordsmith that policy to not, because there again, when I read it, if I was a employee of Gadsden and I would read it and I'd be like, well, I don't have children, I have experience, can I do this? But, so,
Madam
what are your
President, you can, without a doubt, we could use an employee. We're trying to keep some separation there, but after reviewing it with legal counsel, they clearly said, Mr. Dempsey, when you have an administrative action, it's always best practice to have an administrative license behind it. So and I don't want to panic those administrators, what I would expect those administrators to do is review confidentiality laws with the committee. We would have a document for them to sign that they have to maintain confidentiality, and once we've done that, they're protected. But it is really important to make sure we follow a process, and that admin license be a part of it. That was legal guidance.
okay, so let me see if I understand correctly. Because like what I'm reading right now would be all these 12 nominees that we gave you. I was seeing as our principals are just like the representation of the district. So then this policy, I guess what I'm trying to ask, Does this policy apply to to who? To the 12 nominees, or also to the ones that are the can't even talk, let me see, the people that are representing the district, which is our administrators? Does that make sense?
Madam President, let me try to come at this another way, and maybe I'm answering your question. I'm not sure I understand your question, but let me try to come at it. So the an opportunity for appeal review. Really, the biggest part of this is a review to ensure that the student was afforded the required due process, right? And that's where, at some level, administratively, we have to be very thoughtful about this, because if we don't offer that due process, that's where an entire consequence should and could be removed because we didn't allow for that. So that's probably the main standard behind that.
I guess if I may, because I'm looking at it right now, it says, the review hearing authority shall consist of 3 persons. So my question to us all is, those 3 persons are going to be the 3 persons from that pool, or is it 2 of the nominees and including 1 administrator? Which then, if that's the case, then that's why we wouldn't put another bullet that says, and no GISD employees. By not putting that, that covers then the 3rd person, which is the administrator.
Madam President, now I think I understand your question. The way I thought of it as, you would have, the 3 committee members would be made up of 1 administrator that meets that same criteria, and then 2 community members from that pool. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I was not asking correctly, and I think this time once I saw it, then it made sense, and I was able to communicate. Thank you. That makes perfect sense now. Yeah, and if you said that, I am sorry.
It's okay.
Some learners need more than one, and I'm one of those learners. Sorry. Thank you for your patience. Don't laugh at me. Any other further questions or comments?
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
If we approve this, are we approving all the 12 candidates, nominees? Is that what we're approving right now?
What I'm asking you, yes, ma'am. And that clearly said that this group had to be board appointed, and so I am asking for approval for all those individuals. It's on that list. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The reason that I'm asking is because I have some concerns with that list. There's a couple of people who are in that list that I think will be very biased, just because they have a history with the district. They were employees. They have relationships with, friendships with principals, and I would like for this to be sure that it's going to serve the students and it's not going to be biased. So there's more than 1 person in the list that I don't agree with being in the list at all. That's just my opinion.
Madam President, that's to the board's discretion. If you choose to remove someone from the list, that would be up to the board to do so, if they so chose to. I just reacted to, when we realized what we were needing to accomplish, I reached out quickly to some individuals that I thought would fit that criteria, and then I had asked the board from some names. I got some very quickly, and then I got some yesterday, and we started working really quickly, and I feel like we've got to, if we need to cut down that pool, you can. That's really, it's a board appointment, so it's up to the board. It's at the board's discretion whether they maintain that list or modify it if they choose.
Go ahead.
So in order to make that modification, obviously, we're not going to disclose the names right now. So how would we go about that? Do we table that at this point, and then we reevaluate the list, or?
Madam President, I believe that's exactly what you would have to do, is without reading those names in an open meeting, you would have to table that, and then your member that has concerns would need to come, sit down and have a conversation with me, and let's try to have, explain what that would be. I understand the concern. We always want to eliminate any possible bias from those situations. I also know as humans, we would be, one of the most eye-opening experiences that I had as an undergraduate student was taking a class on social justice and somebody pointing out all the personal biases every one of us walk around with every day. And so the hope is you put together 3 people that aren't biased, right? You might have one that has a bias, but you got 2 others to kind of check that. That's why you would have a committee of 3. Maybe if the board could even adjust that policy and make it a committee of 5, right? If you wanted to go there. That's really up to the board's discretion on which route you take. But I'm comfortable either way.
Which was the same question I was going to ask, but then further is, yes, you have to be moving at all times. Let me see. I lost my train of thought. What did you say? What was your statement earlier? Okay, so yes. So we would have to table, but so what you said, Mr. Dempsey, is those of us who might not be in agreement with whoever's on the list would go talk to you, give you reasons why, which I agree, but then how are the rest of us going to know the reasons in order to discuss and then to make the decision without saying the names? I'm like,
well, ultimately, you may have to say the names. You may have to put that list on a board and have that open conversation. That's the transparency of open meetings.
And I guess the other question to me would be, I guess I'm just being honest, is why wouldn't we say the names? I think you referred to something earlier, but because, I think you had mentioned that if my kid is going to have a hearing and I know that, who am I going to pick? Let's see. That Mr. Vasquez there, I know him and I'm like, oh, he's going to be biased against my child. I get that, but then we should be about being transparent to the public. So that's what I'm struggling with at the time.
My concern with publishing the list was that it is very possible that if a parent's child was under a review, they would reach out to those members, and then if I call that member and say, has this person reached out? And the member and the committee member says, well, yes, they have, and we had a conversation about it. Now I can't use you. So I've eliminated, so if they call everybody on the list, I can't give them the appeal. Right? If they share the whole story outside a hearing, then we've eliminated an appeal. And so it's a little tricky.
Yeah, which makes sense, and I guess.
But you know what? I'm comfortable just if we just need to put the list up.
And what is your council advice like, or have you?
I didn't ask. I didn't ask this part. That may be the best. Maybe the best option here is to table the item and let me get some additional guidance. The guidance, I went through this with them, but I was thinking in terms of, if they made a decision and it was challenged, how would we defend those decisions? And after talking about it, we went through some protocols that would be followed. One, signing a confidentiality agreement, some other form type things, and then strong recommendation, like I mentioned earlier, was have a member with an administrative license, which is really what legal counsel always wants on those hearings.
So what does everybody else think?
Madam President, one comment. When it's all said and done, when we have the list, I don't think we should disclose names right now, right? Period. Once that, the list is agreed upon, Mr. Superintendent Dempsey said, it's going to be public records, right? So, so right now, if we're going to table it without saying names, and then go through the list.
Understanding correctly, you're suggesting exactly what you said, don't
So
say.
let me, let me make it easy. I'll make a motion that we table this item, action item 9G, membership review hearing authority, until we get some answers from legal, and we discuss the list amongst ourselves.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Castillo has made a motion to table action item 9G. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A motion passes that action item has been tabled. Moving on to action item 9H, the 2022-23 school calendar. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Wogomuth is going to present this item.
Madam President, members of the school board, Superintendent Dempsey, coming back to you to share with you the calendar survey results based on the discussion that occurred in the last board meeting. Next slide, Mr. Snowdy. Just a reminder, the goal of our school calendar is to support student instruction and teacher teaming and planning. Next slide, Mr. Snowdy. So, last week we took some of the feedback that was given in the last board meeting to reconstruct a revised calendar, which I think if Mr. Dempsey, if you can slide those calendars down to the board members, you can see the revised draft A, which is the first one that you're going to see, and then when Mr. Dempsey gives those to you, you'll go to draft B, which again remained unchanged from our first presentation. Mr. Snowdy, can you open up there the 1A? So there was a recommendation, a suggestion to look at possibly on draft A. If you recall, the original draft A did we had classes on the 20th of on President's Day, and our last day with students was the 25th, and then there was a work day on May 26th. So the suggestion was to put President's Day back on there as a vacation and make the last day a half day. So that is the calendar that went out for vote, as well as calendar B. So I'm going to share with you the results of the voting on the survey, and then I'll loop back to a couple of things that came up with the revised draft. Mr. Snowdy, next slide, please. So these were the calendar survey results by the different classification of employee. I think we had about 1,200 total responses on this survey. You can see there in blue, and of course I emailed this presentation to you as well. My apologies, I didn't mention that at the beginning. You can see there the first option in blue is option A, option B is in red, and as you can see, hands down for all of our groups of employees, they did select draft A. And as I mentioned last time, draft A was also presented to student leadership, and to a person, it was draft A as well. Though I know Ms. Flores, I don't think I saw you last time at the last meeting, but your colleagues there went straight A. Next slide, please, Mr. Snowdy. This was the participation by site and by classification of employee. So you can look at the key there, so it kind of tells you the different sites and the number of responses by the different classifications of employee and parent. Of course, the two largest groups of responses, or the three largest groups of responses, are always parents, which you can see in green on there. The red are our certified staff, and then the yellow is our classified staff. So those always make up the largest quantity of responses. And there, of course, typically your high schools, because there's more students, you get more responses from all those different groups of people. Next slide, Mr. Snowdy. So here's the recommendation that we're going to share with you this evening, and a little bit of a clarification and qualifying about the voting. So the draft A revised went out. Was presented to you, was presented for vote, the first one you see here with the last day as a half day and President's Day back on there. However, after the voting started, review was done of the calendar, and this was a little bit of a counting mistake on my part. What happened when we removed the President's Day as a work day and a school day, what we also did is remove an employee work day. And some of the basic parameters of our calendar is the employees have to work 190 days. So when we made those shifts, we shifted the last day to a student day, which was already a teacher work day, just shifted to a student day, put President's Day as a vacation. That actually increased the students by 1 day to 181, but reduced the staff to 189. And so that basically put the basic parameters of the calendar in a situation where we had to consider something else. So this, of course, was noticed when the voting was already in process. So my recommendation is going to be this: is to shift back to to vote on the original draft A, which is what was presented to you last time. You can find that draft. That's the third page in your packet, and of course, it's exactly what I shared last time. It is working on President's Day. Last day of school is May 25th. And of course, last day of classes is May 25th, and a full work day for the teachers on May 26th. And that meets all of our parameters. I did note up here, did a little research for you about kind of going back to option 8. Sam, if you can just shift back to the PowerPoint, please. Okay, so a couple things here. Socorro ISD, Sala ISD, Canantillo ISD, they're all having classes on President's Day. That seems to be a shift of a day that people are putting back in their calendar. I didn't have that information for you last time. I know I mentioned it, but I wanted to put that up there to share with you. Before we did the revision on the calendar that was suggested, we did have a trenches meeting before the last board meeting, and we presented the original A and the draft B that was voted on. All the trenches members that were there, said, hey, we'll take the original draft A, them knowing that, of course, President's Day was going to be a work day. So everything was trending towards option A, whether it was the original option A or the revised option A. And I think what staff, and I think when the students voted, appreciated on that was, kind of the December vacation, kind of when that starts, and the length of that for families. So I think that's kind of what they saw as the benefit there. So we voted on a modified version of draft A, though I feel that the original draft A, if approved, is going to be kind of in the spirit of what the voting had indicated. And I'll stand for any questions.
Madam President, board members, I would just note I think what we set out to accomplish at some level is carving out time, notice those Wednesdays, where we can encourage and facilitate teachers working together in grade level teams to prepare for, to create lesson plans, to analyze assessment data, and giving them that extra time they need to be as prepared as possible for their students. And I think that, to me, is probably one of the most important pieces. Now, I want to note here that the way we've designed this is we could very easily, if we see problems, if we get halfway through the year, we could still come back to the board and say, you know what, those early release Wednesdays are not working. They've turned into staff meetings, and we're talking about Halloween Carnival and things that really are not academically critical, and we just need to go to school. And so that, the way it's been designed, that remains on the table as an option. The calendar is and does require board action. So in order to do that, we would come back to you to have that conversation with you. But if we see that as not being effective or even possibly abused, we could definitely come back and have that conversation with you if need be.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? Mrs. Murillo?
Thank you for the calendars. I didn't think about it last time, but I did get several calls from parents and teachers, concerns about the Wednesdays. maybe I'm at fault as well because I voted as well and I don't remember the questions, so I'm sorry for that. But that they didn't have an option to not vote for every single Wednesday. And so some of the concerns were, as a parent side, what are we going to do every single Wednesday for the whole year with our kids? And then on the teacher side, we don't want this every single Wednesday. So there were concerns all across the board. I don't remember if it was there as a question or not for us voting. I don't remember, but I know I voted yes because I saw what you guys brought up, and it was, I mean, I liked it, right? Having every single Wednesday, the kids off, giving opportunity to the teachers for growth, you know, but now hearing the concerns, now I'm concerned.
Sure. Mr. Wogermuth, I don't know if you have that slide. I don't know if you have that available, but I can confirm that one of the wording of the question on the survey clearly allowed you could select as I'm okay with an early out every Wednesday, 4 times a month, once a month, every other week, right? So that was clearly a choice on the survey, and the results. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, Ms. Murillo. So on the presentation I gave last time, and again, it's probably buried somewhere there over in Mr. Snowdy's file, but Mr. Dempsey is exactly correct. There was a question that went out to staff and to parents, both the same question. So the staff, we presented, kind of 3 or 4 different options to capture some more PD time, right? Work an extra half an hour a day, work extra days during the year, or an early out. And those were all presented. Sam, it's probably, keep going. Yeah, okay, very good, Sam, thank you. So this is the survey that said, how many days, this was the one for the, this shows it by group here. How many days would you support? This is staff. So you can see, oh no, sorry, wrong one, Sam. Go forward. One more time. Okay, this is the staff, back one, you were right there. Okay, this one right here is about the early outs and how the staff responded. They responded once a week, twice a month, or once a month. Okay, so over two-thirds of the certified staff said early outs more frequently. Okay, so we took it as the more frequently. With our consultation of the other districts that have done early outs, what they share with you is you need to do them very frequently, because what you're setting the early out as part of the routine of the school week. When you have them less frequently, then what it turns into is not a routine, and parents and kids, right? And this doesn't happen very often, so I'm not going to go to school today. So that was a recommendation from both who we spoke with at Amphitheater and Clovis, that making it part of the routine is what makes it a successful thing. So again, more frequently here versus less frequently was the choice there. Now, Sam, if you go forward a couple, I think we have the parent responses possibly on the same thing. Yeah, so these are the parent responses. Go back, Sam. So these are of the English respondents in blue and red, supporting early outs once a week, twice a month. Okay, go back one, Sam. I think the Spanish one is back one. Same question here to our Spanish respondents, blue and red, once a month or once a week or twice a month. Again, when you average those both together, it's a frequency of close to 3/4 saying more frequently. And so that's the decisions that we made in constructing the calendars. And then go forward to Sam. Thank you. And in conjunction with that, we had to ask the other important question: if there were going to be early outs, would you be able to find supervision for your child? We have a plan to have some of that available, but the primary responsibility would be for the family to have that supervision on those early outs. Again, you can see here with our Spanish-speaking families that responded, over 80%, and then Mr. Snowdy, the next one, please. Almost 90% of our English-speaking families responded, yes, we could find supervision. So, Ms. Murillo, we have never done a pre-survey before. That's a new thing for us to do. When we felt it would be useful to do a pre-survey, kind of lay out what some of the goals were, what we were trying to accomplish, and then of course build some calendars based on on those surveys and the trends in those surveys. So, that is some of the decisions that went into us in creating the calendars, both having early outs on all the days, because to Mr. Dempsey's point, people that do this with experience say more frequently helps make it a routine, helps make it more successful. But to Mr. Dempsey's point, if it is not effective, then there's always the option to come and rescind that. Because really, there's lots of important parts of the calendar. One important part is the early outs, but another key part is like the literal days when people work and don't work. That's what really, I believe Mr. Dempsey says, kind of kicks off the budget process. So, in this decision, you're approving both things. We're recommending, we need to provide teachers that time. That was very clear in the pre-survey. If we're going to take the next step, and so as the academic services team, that was a decision that we want to see if that can have an impact, and really spend the rest of this school year continuing to communicate, working with the administrators to plan those days out, looking for options for kids who, aren't able to make it home at the early out time, to see what we can do to accommodate that. And again, work with our folks that we spoke with in amphitheater and the individual that used to do this in Clovis, to bridge some of those needs. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, one more.
Of course.
What are we looking at for time? Testing this a full semester or playing it by month? Because, I understand also, we don't want to say, oh, it's been 3 weeks and it's not working, so we need a change. Do we have like a time?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, I wouldn't say there's a set time frame. I think that anything that you're piloting or trying, you want to try to see how it works for the school year would be the target. You don't want to abandon something new that you're trying too early, because you may not have maximized the value of it. So I think as we've talked, a year's a really good time to decide whether it was effective or not effective. But to Mr. Dempsey's point, if we get to the semester, granted there are going to be kinks at the beginning, but if we get to the semester and the kinks aren't worked out and it seems to be getting worse, to Mr. Dempsey's point, that may be a good time to make a different decision.
Any further questions or comments? Mr. Cano.
Mr. W., how about spring break? I know especially with our Alta Vista and DACA students that we have going down there, I know for some reason I thought that it had already taken effect for this year, where DACA students are on vacation right now on spring break, and then once we go on spring break, then they're going to be. Is the new calendar meeting the specific dates for spring break?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. So I think in the planning for last year, for this year's calendar, probably reading and navigating the NMSU website, I think in the calendar construction last year, I believe that Mrs. Casillas felt she put the matching dates, but if you don't press the right tab, you're not looking in the right academic school year. And I had initially done the same thing this year, and then I rechecked it, that it's the 13th through 17th, and maybe Estrella or Mr. Duggins back here is going to check one more time that I have the right NMSU date. But I did check it a couple of times, and that is the intention that it is the NMSU DACC vacation for that exact reason that you said.
Mrs. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. So let's see. You mentioned about trenches being part of the, let me see, the way it was worded here. I thought I had it. Well, they're the ones that made the decision, or not the final decision, but, okay, what was it again?
So I'm trying to spend a little time on here. Typically this is not reviewed by trenches, right? We decided to take it to trenches again this year. We have another calendar committee that was put together that has some trenches reps, some additional people that aren't on trenches. And so The trenches team met prior to, right, the last board meeting on suggestions about draft A, the original draft A, which is your third page. Okay, that was based on the survey. We asked, hey, just what do y'all think of this between A and B? Which one would you prefer? And they kind of gave us a little straw poll. Hey, and everybody in trenches said we prefer the original draft A you see on page 3 versus A and B. Then we had the board meeting the following day for the discussion, and of course, taking the feedback on, hey, could we kind of work in President's Day back into draft A? So we worked President's Day back into draft A, and then of course, after we took that feedback, then we went to the calendar committee, and back to the calendar committee, which is not trenches, and we kind of said, hey, what do you all prefer? Draft A revised or draft A original? Because we had received your feedback. And it was kind of split down the middle in that calendar committee, draft A original, draft A revised. The reason why I mentioned to you that trenches, before I had made the revisions, was okay with the original draft A, is because I wanted you as a board to understand that a group of teachers that represent the campuses, along with the students that you saw on student leadership, were initially okay with the original draft A, so you would have confidence, right? Some confidence in knowing that there was a group of teachers that was okay with the original, even though the revised is what went out in the survey. So I don't know if that helps you out with.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. I just was a little bit concerned when you specifically mentioned trenches, because I think that the voice of everyone is important, and I know that's why the campuses have the representative for trenches, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the only voice. So thank you for clarifying that. The next one would be, I know that this was requested last time, and I know that in order to continue with this is part of the budget process, right, in having this calendar in place. But one of the requests was to have plenty of time for the voting. I know that there was 4 days. That was Friday, or actually it came out Friday, so it was a little bit over.
Came out Friday.
Right. So it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday is when it closed. So almost, let's just say 4.5 to be fair. But I have an issue with that because the fact that we included the weekend, I'm guilty of that many times. I'm so busy with the family that I postpone things, and then I say I'll do it on Monday. And then of course we all know that Monday is a little bit hectic because it's the beginning of the week. So technically, in my eyes as a parent, I had 1 day to look at this, right? And again, to Mr. Dempsey's point earlier, we have to be part of that change and part of that engagement. So I know that we could give more time and maybe the same amount of people would still participate. But again, I just feel like for future, I guess, since this already occurred, maybe doing it from Monday through Thursday, or perhaps the whole week, but Monday through Friday, instead of utilizing that weekend. So that was one of the concerns that I had. And I just wanted to mention, thank you, looking at the participation by sites, thank you to those, and I'm going to dare say the campuses that had a lot of participation of the parents. I think that, again, in order to make a change, we need to be advocates, right? And so creating that, encouraging the parents to participate is going to make a difference. And if we just put it out one time, give them the information. Parents do forget, parents are busy, and like I say, I include myself. And so being proactive and sending out information and reminding parents that it is important to vote, because after the fact, there's nothing that can be done. Before, let's make a look at every detail so that we can make it the best for everyone. So basically those were my only things.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Appreciate that feedback.
Okay, so I do have questions.
Of course.
Okay, so on draft A, whether it's draft A, draft B, or whichever draft it is, but anyways, at the bottom, draft A specifically, it does mention that our early out which is the dark box around every Wednesday. So it reads as follows: early out, regular start time. Students released approximately 2 hours early, and we have in parentheses teacher, PD, and PM. So my question is, I just want the clear clarification for the public to know, for our teachers to know, for administrators to know, for everybody to know. When I see that, that's telling me every single Wednesday is going to be PD. I do have a concern with that, because are we going to be overloading our teachers? PD, 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 without giving them time to process the PD that is being given time to integrate the PD that is given to them, looking at, there's much more, and I'm not against PD. PD is awesome, but it is effective and awesome when you allow teachers and your staff members to have time to reflect, to think, how is this PD going to look like in our school? How are we going to take this information and make it applicable? Because obviously the ultimate goal for PD is, yes, teacher learning, but obviously the ultimate goal is for student outcomes. So that's one question.
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, I think in including the letters PD, that's very easily, we can clarify that's teacher teaming, planning. I don't want the board or any teacher to think that, it's every week PD, because I do recall some feedback last time, hey, let's make sure that's teacher teaming time. So, very, that's a very, a simple correction and clarification, because I think, in conversations that we have with administrators, there's no desire, doing professional development from a district or campus level every week is not going to be effective. Teacher teaming and planning together with some specific district level led PD throughout those Wednesdays is going to be more effective. What I will share with you, and again, if approved, we then go back and start the definition of what that Wednesday looks like. And again, the two pieces of feedback from Amphitheater and Clovis were, one, it needs to be a routine, a frequent routine. And what number two was, make sure that whatever you do on those Wednesdays with the teachers, whatever activity it is well defined and well planned out to meet the goal. And so, we have some of that information from them and support from them to do that. And if approved, we would then go forward this semester in communicating what it's going to be and defining what that looks like for our teachers. So that's a very simple grammatical change.
Okay. And so then my next question.
Madam President, I wonder if you would be interested in replacing that language with something more like collaborative teaming, right? Because we don't want we don't want our teachers to feel like we're going to be there every Wednesday with PD, but I also, so there's two sides of this coin. The one side is we want to give teachers time to work together to develop and analyze and give them a little pause so they know where they're at. This will not be working in your classroom.
And definitely agree to that, sir. And so because, ask any teacher, what would you like is more, give us planning time during when, not after school, not on weekends, but during work time. So, and I do want to share and say thank you to the calendar team, to you, sir, leading the calendar team, because no doubt have, through your questions of the surveys, Gadsden other districts have done it, but we're thinking creatively, we're imagining, like Ms. Rodriguez said, what could be. And so, here we are about to approve one of the calendars where my colleagues are being given the opportunity to, like you said, collaborate. What was the word that you used?
Collaborative teaming was what I was thinking.
So that is awesome, and I want to applaud you for that and your team, so thank you.
Thank you.
My next question is, who would be deciding what is in, because obviously there's going to be an agenda, correct? And who would be deciding the agenda? Is there going to be times where it's going to be things coming down from the district, and sometimes things coming down from a campus level? And then who would be leading these collaborative teaming Wednesdays? Would it be an administrator? I mean, I'm all about balancing. That's another question.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, so, some of us have been excitedly talking about how this could look. It's very, very different than anything we've ever done. Well, I've experienced as an educator, and so an opportunity to respond to teacher need. We've talked about the primary was like the different type of teacher teams. Okay, we have grade level teacher teams. We have horizontal teacher teams between grade levels. How do we work out a cycle where those teams can collaborate in person or virtually? So we kind of start off with the different kinds of teams. Then it was, well, we have some district PD to deliver. So does that happen on like a once a month type of cycle? Who leads this? Right now, we're working with our consultants at SREB to do some formal PLC training. We have worked with our specialists, our coaches, all of our campus administrators, and then we're looking this summer to loop in the lead teachers, because as I think the board has shared before, we need to look for that teacher leadership and develop that teacher leadership. So we really kind of want to look at a team of your specialists, your campus instructional coach, and your lead teachers on campus, getting trained and leading those teams, because that's really a vital function in growing our capacity in our district. So if you're asking for a 30,000-foot view of how that may look, that's what we've discussed as academic services team. But if approved, we want to use the rest of this semester and this summer to really, with our campus administrators, our instructional coaches, our specialists, and our consultants and folks that have done this before, really sit down and plan that out. How that looks in elementary, how it looks in middle school, how it looks in high school. There'll be some common features between all of those, but there could be some variations depending on the level.
Okay. And then I guess my question is, I want to be positive and not earlier there was conversation that if things starts going south, which is not going to happen in our district, this is going to work. It might not be smooth, but it's going to work. Who's going to be monitoring, making sure that these collaborative teaming Wednesdays are flowing, are working, and if there are bumps and concerns, I would, obviously, you follow a chain of command. I would expect my colleagues, if there's issues, first person that they're going to talk to might be the instructional specialist or whoever's leading and then of course their administrator, and in the event that, following the chain of command, but who's going to make sure that these collaborative team Wednesdays are working?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, excellent question. Again, our individual that we work with from Clovis, who also now serves as kind of one of our SRAB consultants that we've been talking about, she's former deputy superintendent. That was another thing she said, and she said, this academic services team need to support the development of it, and then you as an academic services team need to visit those campuses to see if what you've designed is working, and if it's not, provide the support to make it work. And she said if you are not willing to do that on Wednesdays and be out there, then that's going to be another roadblock to the success that we want. So to your response, the academic services team will be responsible, the primary responsibility for supervising that in collaboration with our campus administrators.
Okay. So I'll conclude with this question so that means that because you guys are going to be supervising, then the superintendent obviously is giving you the authority to step into these meetings as they're occurring, to strictly observe or participate, or it could look all different ways, but I just wanted to know so that our colleagues know that, if you come in there,
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, we have been trying as academic services team to be on the campuses a little bit more this semester. We've had stops and starts in doing that well. But our goal as academic services team is to be out there to observe, support, give feedback to the principal, and for the principals to give feedback to us relative to hey, Mr. Hernandez, hey, Mr. Duggan, hey, Mr. Araujo, this is working. We're struggling with this. How can you help us make this work better? So that's what we want to set out to do in supporting this initiative and other things on campuses as well.
Okay, and then I obviously hope that everybody will be professional, from our teachers to the academic team to principals, where when there is feedback needed, that it's going to be done in private, not in front of everybody, because we have to, the only way we can improve is being transparent, knowing our strengths and areas that we need to improve, but also doing it in a respectable manner for all.
Yes, ma'am.
With that, I conclude my questions.
Thank you. And again, just a reminder, the recommendation is to approve what I've spelled out here, the very last one, Draft A, Original. I don't know if that's the third one in your packet. I don't know if that's what Mr. Snowdy has up there. It is.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Do I hear a motion for action item 9H?
Madam President, I'll make a motion. Hello, testing.
Mr.
Madam
Cano.
President, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to accept item of the calendar, where is it? 9H, to accept it. Original plan, draft A.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Mr. Cano has made a motion to accept action 9A, which happens to be our 2022-23 school calendar, and he specifically mentioned draft A, the original draft. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. So you can get your budget going, Mr. Dempsey.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion items. 10A, GISD academic process. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Duggan's going to help us with this item. Some of the conversations we've had this evening, I think, lead right up almost perfect to what Mr. Duggan is going to get a chance to present. And I would encourage you, if you have further questions after this slide, arrange a time to sit down with Mr. Duggan. He'd love to talk to you. I want to say, as we begin this and preface it with, I'm incredibly proud of what our administrators and our teachers and all of our staff have done, and we're already starting to see the results of what I think is a true standards-based curriculum being delivered.
All righty, thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. I thank you so much for this time today. I know the last time I stood in front of you and presented data, testing data, was not the most pleasant, and we all had a lot of reactions to this, but today I have a much different tone that I want to share with everyone. So, Mr. Stody, we could go to the front. I think we're at the end of the slide here. So if we could go to the very first slide, there you go, for our middle of the year testing update, which I've changed because again, you'll see throughout the presentation, we want to shift away from such a heavy testing focus, right? We have several different measures that we can use to measure student success. So in collaboration with my role, or in line with my role as a director of student success, I kind of want to change that to what is student success and what is the measure of student success. So next slide. I wanted to talk a little bit about the assessments that were used in this middle of the year snapshot. So sometimes you use, and please feel free to ask me any of these things at any point, but because I know sometimes I get too much into the teacher lingo or kind of coded lingo or acronyms for it. So I've tried to really spell out everything, but MOY, you'll see a lot of things that say MOY, that is the assessments for the middle of the year snapshot. We assessed grades, really K through 11 during this that were included. Kinder to 6th includes data from iReady includes data from Kinder to 6th grade, right? But primarily it is used to evaluate grades Kinder to 2nd, okay? Also, and that's in the math side of it. On the Kinder to 2nd is also assessed through iStation data, which is to assess the reading side of it. 3rd through 8th, the primary assessments through this point, and really the main measure of learning in 3rd through 8 in New Mexico is the IMASA cycle, and I have that written down below, the interim measures of student success and achievement. That also includes a summative assessment, which is going to be, we're going to change the acronym to NMASA. You'll see how we did this very nicely, right? Which is just the New Mexico measures of student success and achievement. And then finally, our grades 8 through 11, we were able to gather all the data from the October PSAT, SAT school day. So that's included in this snapshot that I'm going to provide today. All right. So the next slide, Mr. Snowdy. Again, the standards that were due, a lot of people always ask the question of what standards or what were the topics that were assessed during the window. And so we get a diagnostic report through iReady. Primarily they kind of give you the same types of themes, diagnostic or summary report. They give you a skill growth, most of these do. And then also they give you a standards report of what went into it, and we could break it down by the standard and really individualize how we scored so we can prioritize which standards we, as a trend we're doing that we need support on. We could also get individual student reports out of these so we can provide those with the students, which is ultimately going to be one of the things that I hope we eventually get to over the next 3 to 5 years. The one that's a little bit different is the PSAT. That does include a scores and benchmarks tool. It includes growth, and then also there's a growth report, and then there's also an instructional planning. So if we wanted to cater some of our high school classes towards certain things in the SAT or PSAT, we could do that. We do have the ability to do that. Next slide, please. So, and forgive me, I'm kind of, if you could just click, but don't go to, I was messing around trying to see how creative I could be and somehow faded in this data. So I'm not quite sure why I did that and not on any of the other slides. But how the data is shared, the district administrators literally starts with Mr. Constant and I. We sit down, we review the results, go through everything, make sure we understand it, make sure we know all the reports. Then we meet with a bigger academic services team. One of the things that, hats off to Mr. Dempsey for doing this year, a little bit different than what most districts do. He's included Ms. Martinez and also our representatives from Human Resources in there so that we could really embrace the efficiency of it, right? Like we're looking at but we do understand that our taxpayer dollars that are funding our system, and so we want to make sure that we're using those efficiently as stewards of taxpayer money. And so we're really trying to think about the efficiency of our program and making sure that whatever we invest, we're getting results out of. And so we've been having those discussions. From there, we present this information to the principals through our monthly principal advisory meetings. Usually, we have then a practice with the principals. It's kind of like a community of practice format where they will sit in their feeder patterns, go through the data together, discuss it together, and really come up with plans that they use together. From that point, we encourage them to share it to their staff, their students, and their community. And this should be done through the coffee with the principals, or through staff meetings and other methods that principals share with their staff. We also encourage them to give their teachers access to their individual scores. And again, the teachers train their teachers on how to use it if needed, and then also reach out to us because we're happy to train the schools on this. We also work with the specialists. That's part of their role to do this. And then that would be used at the teacher level to really drive the PLC process. Okay. So next slide, please, Mr. Snowdy. So I just, because I have a ton of data, right, and we could be here all night if I went through every single one, I wanted to do just a quick executive summary for you. One of the things that I would say is all of the trends were extremely positive. From the district level, we saw levels of proficiency increase. We saw the PSAT and the SAT data, which I'm going to focus a little bit on, was very promising and really, I think, eliminated a lot of the gaps that we saw in previous data sets. Math, PSAT, and SAT, I was going to explain this a little bit, but math, you'll see a lot of times because the lower levels of tests usually assess proficiency, and PSAT, SAT assesses more readiness for college. They're a little bit different measures, but you'll see when it comes to math readiness and the SAT and math or English readiness on the SAT, they're very comparable. So in other words, there is no gap. So on some of this data, you'll see, oh, well, our proficiencies are really low in math. But I want to highlight that as far as the instruction side of it, those gaps don't really exist as much, right? You'll see this on the growth reports as well. But also on the PSAT, SAT, is that you can see their comparables, the average is right around 400 to 450 for both subjects, right? Math is still going to be a focus. You know, I think that there's a lot of data that we need to support on the math side of it, because again, the proficiency side is a little bit lower as far as the instruction is concerned. And then I'll explain this a little bit, but proficiency, we want proficiency to be aligned across the district and really have a true understanding of what is proficiency among teachers, students, and then ultimately parents, community, everybody. So we have one unified idea of what proficiency is. And I use these terms, teacher efficacy and student efficacy, which I will explain a little bit later in the presentation after I go through the data, because that's kind of part of our next steps, all right? So next slide, Mr. Snowdy. And if you could just go to our dashboard. We're looking to make this a public part of our website. And so going through that, I've got to meet with Mr. Carmona to go through and embed this, and I think I've assured it for accessibility, screen readers, all of those things as well, so that we can make sure that everything is ready to go on the website and compliant. But we want to make this something that we update regularly as new data comes in, not just during the windows or after the fact, but as we're looking at it, we want to update it, make sure it's public and available to everybody. So I'm going to start here with iReady and math. I just want to show, again, the green and the blue have increased and the red and the orange have decreased. So those are very good. That means proficiency and advanced have increased, and then also lower levels, the critical need for intervention, have decreased, right? So we've kind of shrunk that part through the middle year. If you go down, iStation provides a little bit more. And again, because of the way iReady comes out, it's just a massive amount of data. So we didn't break it down by grade level. So that's the rare glimpse of a pie chart that you're going to get in this one. So I try to use bar graphs that are a little bit easier to communicate normally. But so you'll see, going to iStation, the blue is the middle of the year, and it compares to the yellow or the gold, which is the beginning of the year. So again, you'll see the trend. The areas of exceeding and proficient grew. The areas of beginning and below proficient shrunk, right? So again, great growth at all levels through iStation of kinder, first, second grade, all right? So if we could go to next to our district achievement for IMASA. And again, all of these are going to be available, so I don't want to spend too much time. And as Mr. Dempsey said, I'm always available to really give you a thorough analysis of everything. But just wanted to point out, in comparison of the middle of the year and the beginning of the year, middle of the year, we see a lot more students on target and much fewer students in the areas of need support. And so IMASA provides us with data on reading, language usage, and math. So if you scroll down a little bit on this page, you'll see this, and it's a pretty consistent trend of on target grew significantly from the beginning of the year, and the need support areas, which are really those critical needs learners, they shrunk in the middle of the year. So, and now if you go into math, the same trend, but again, proficiency. So if you see at the beginning of the year, almost all of our learners were in the red, right? We see much more growth where in the blue and in the orange areas. So if you go to our next tab, which is our district growth, this takes out the idea of proficiency and just looks at it expected growth, right? And the state has a way of measuring what a year's growth would look like in comparison to where you started and then where you finish. So, and they track that. So I would highlight here in reading, language usage, and math, all of these you'll see comparable trends among all areas of blue and green, which means excellent. We're either making expected growth or above expected growth in some cases, right? And so that goes all the way through all of the subjects. One of the things that you'll see is there are still a portion of red and yellow which are either far below expected or really near expected, but not quite making what their expected gains were. I would tell you this though, I don't think that's a reflection of the instruction that's going on. I actually think that those numbers correlate to our chronic absentee rate, right? So students, if you're missing a lot of class, it really impacts how much learning you're able to demonstrate and to receive. So, and we've noticed, we've kind of looked at those numbers of there is a pretty strong correlation between the chronic absentee levels and what we have in the yellow and the red. So to conclude that point, and this was probably what made me the most excited, is I would say, if kids are coming to class, they're learning, and we can demonstrate it, which is awesome, right? So if you just kind of tab over some of the next few tabs, Mr. Snowdy, if you remember, we presented this in August. We broke it down by feeder pattern. So we've done the same. We have every school that's on here and their individual school scores that should be available. I want to encourage parents, community members to reach out to their principals, because the principals should should be able to explain these things and go over that and really have a good in-depth conversation with where they are on their instructional side of it as an instructional leader, where it fits with their professional development plans, and really try to explain even their overall dash plan as they're going in. But again, one thing I would note is all of these schools did extremely well, right? And so no feeder was behind the projected growth. There was no irregular trends that really, all of the feeders really did well in this set. So, Mr. Snowdy, if you could go to our PSAT data, and again, you'll see this for everything. Each feeder you can just kind of tab over. So my last slide my last area I wanted to focus on with our achievement dashboard is our SAT data. So nationally, the score average on SATs is about 1080. But I would also say, because your natural inclination would be, well, we're a little bit below the national average. But I wouldn't recommend making that conclusion, because as you know, SAT in many cases is only taken by college-bound students, right? It's a tool to get into college. So it's a very selective testing process. Here in New Mexico in the Gadsden district, we test everybody, right? So this is our entire population. And you'll see, while we are below the national average, we're not significantly below it, right? We're right in that area. In fact, if you go back through the history, I think about 20 years ago, the national average, before testing became such a focus nationally, I think the national average was about 750. So actually, we're about the average that was in place 20 years ago. We're beating it with all of our students, right? And so I would say kudos to us. We've done a really good job of getting kids ready for college, right? And this is all of our kids. So next to this, next to the SAT data that I've provided for you, you'll see the blue is where this is within one class, right? This is this year's seniors. So for whatever reason, 2 years ago, we did not test all 9th graders, but we tested 10th graders PSAT. So those 10th graders are now seniors. And you can see 2 years ago in the blue is where they were on the PSAT. And this year, this is where our seniors are on the SAT. So you'll see at every school, while the range might change a little bit, vary from overall averages or means, you'll see a pretty significant trend of growth at every single school. And I just think this is amazing, right? It's really terrific work that the schools have done. I want to recognize the work that Chaparral High School has put in, because if you remember from my previous presentation, there seemed to be some pretty significant gaps in the Chaparral area. But you can see here in the data that I'm presenting, at the elementary school, that gap seems to have closed. At the middle school, you're going to see it, as I'll focus on a couple slides here in a minute, and also at the high school, right? And so we see this consistent trend. I personally am a little biased, right? Because she's my boss, right? But I would say, you know, going back historically, Ms. Hernandez really set a high precedent at Chaparral Middle School and got a lot of achievement. Ms. Avila has continued that process. You see some of those kids now are currently seniors, and they're really showing well at Chaparral High School. But then the other thing that really makes me excited is, I say, our group of Chaparral principals at the elementary level too are really working hard together. We can see through our principal advisory meetings, they work very cohesively and plan together and do an excellent job, and it comes out in the data as well, right? So for that part, I know that was a big question from the last time of where was Chaparral in our progress. You can see they've really effectively closed the gap, and so that's really awesome. Again, PSAT, you see the same trends. 9th grade breakdown from October, 9th grade this year we took the PSAT. We have a pretty good trend at 9th grade level. 10th grade, you see also a little bit of growth or above where the 9th graders were scoring, and then 11th graders all scoring very well. Again, Chaparral High School scored very well on the PSAT because they had split their juniors into 2 different sets. And then the last thing I want to point out is our PSAT. We gave our PSAT to our 8th graders. So again, this is really showing, demonstrating readiness for college, and it's typically very rare that we're comparing where our 8th graders are. In Chaparral Middle School, and this is not saying any of the other schools did poorly, because they all did wonderful on this, but Chaparral Middle School scored the highest out of this group. So just amazing work by those principals. And so, but again, I can't say this enough because I'm very excited about it. All of our schools did really well, right? I mean, we're out here in Chaparral, so of course I'm going to spotlight them, but I can tell you all of our schools did a terrific job. And so it was really amazing. So Mr. Stoney, if we could go back to our PowerPoint. So our instructional priorities, right? So we have a thing, let's keep the main thing, right? Instruction is the main thing, right? Sometimes it can get caught up with, especially this year, we've learned kind of the hard way with the pandemic and with other things that are going on. But really, what are we here to do? Teach kids, right? And so that's our main thing. So how are we gonna focus on that area? So next slide, please. So we've started this trend of setting out some instructional priorities or some district priorities for the principals, and really trying to start every meeting with that, at least on the agendas. And so I've said this and tried to explain this before, according to Hattie's research, the 2 most important factors in student achievement are student self-efficacy and also teacher efficacy, right? And so a lot of people would ask, what are those things? Well, for students, that means, do they understand the expectations? What do they need to do to succeed within the class? Are they able to identify their areas of strength, right? Because not all students learn the same. Some of us, I'm a good talker, so I learn through a lot of talking. But I don't always, I'll be honest with you, I'm not always the best listener, so I'm not really that type of auditory listener. I learn things through visuals a lot more, and then through conversation. So I have a unique learning style, but all of us have our own learning style. It's important for the students to learn that, because then they can access the curriculum in multiple ways. Then I know, one of the advantages I have is I know I don't learn certain ways, so I don't want to sit through a lecture the whole time, right? Because I'm not a very good auditory learner anyway. But there are kids who do learn from that. So we need to, the kids can learn themselves, how do I access the curriculum where I'm going to be most successful? Also be aware of their academic progress. So one of the things I want to say is, when kids score low, we don't want that to define them for the rest of their lives, right? And the student has a responsibility in this process to know, even though I'm low, this is what I need to do to improve. And so we're going to start trying to really focus on that. And then the last thing is going through productive academic struggle. I'll show a little bit of data here through Panorama, which has received a wonderful marketing approach tonight, right? So I'll explain a little bit of that, but again, when students are faced with very difficult activities, how do they go through the productive academic struggle they need, and then accomplish and conquer that task, right? How they feel about it. A lot of times kids will say either this is too easy or it's too hard, right? And then there's not a lot of learning that goes. The most learning occurs when I'm faced with a challenging thing, I try it, maybe I didn't get it right the first time, I had to redo it, go back, learn from my mistakes, come back the next time, get it right, and then I've mastered it. And that's really something that we need to instill in our kids. You know, I always say, like, and I've heard this, kids generally are not afraid to learn, right? They're afraid to fail. And that's one of those things that's crucial, that we have to say, if you fail at one particular content, here's what you do to improve from that and learn from your failures so that you can overcome those failures. So on the teacher efficacy side, again, am I able to identify proficiency? So the same thing with the students. Support multiple learning styles. So can I create lessons that meets all the learning needs in my classroom? Purposeful planning. So we've talked a lot about the calendar, and we've kind of explained, but that PLC time, again, wonderful questions, right? We don't want to take that time up with PD or with separate agendas. This is time for the teachers to sit together and establish some of these things. Who does the best lessons? How can I learn from you? You know, what are the standards that we're going to focus on over this week or 2 week cycle, and how are we going to assess it? What opportunities can we give the kids to redo assignments so that they can improve on their previous work? So focusing on measurable outcomes each time to make sure, you know, I always say there's almost nothing that we do where we give an assignment and then we assess it and then there's never anything else, right? That's not really life. We have to be able to have measurable outcomes every step, so that I know if I didn't do something right the first time, what do I need to do to get better? What are my benchmarks for it? And then finally, scaffolded instruction. So again, when that kid's going through that really productive academic struggle and they are learning, how do I scaffold my instruction to support them so that even though they're struggling with this concept, they feel confident that they're going to reach the next milestone. And it's unfortunate our student representative had left, but again, they talked about the panorama data, which I'm going to show in just a few minutes, a little bit of our district trends, but that's a perfect example of student and teacher efficacy. Those students have faith in those teachers, that those teachers are going to help guide them to the next topic, right? And she says it in front of everybody, right? And it's one of those things that I would say, we all know it, but now we have measurables, right? That really confirm that process. So next slide, Mr. Snowdy. So one of the things that's going to be the benefit of really changing, moving away from just testing. So one of the things I would say is, you know, I'd love to stand up here in front of you every board meeting, right, if possible, and be this excited about things. But unfortunately, a lot of times we only do things based off of testing. That's a very reactive response to our kids, right? We talked about earlier, Mr. Cano asked a wonderful question. How are we going to know it's working, right? If we have these early out days, how are we going to know? Are we going to wait till this, you know, Ms. Murillo, you asked the question, what's the timeline, right? Are we going to wait a semester? Well, we need to know before the semester whether these things are working, right? And so we need to have multiple measures, not just through testing, but through other factors. And so testing, when we make decisions based only on testing, it's very reactive, all right? And we want to be a little bit more proactive. So one of the things that I would propose through, and Panorama will give us some of this, is that we can really diversify our data streams. So instruction a lot of times is tied to testing, right? I don't want to devalue testing. It has a very important part in our conversations. But again, it really is only measuring instruction, right, during that time. Along with grades, those are kind of our two best metrics of instruction. But there's other things like school climate, how to sense of belonging, things like that are also important and do have a huge impact on student achievement, student success. Teacher engagement, right? So how do teachers feel? What is their level of efficacy? How often are they working together? How often are they doing this? When they work together, how successful are they, right? So those are the types of teacher engagement metrics that we want to look at. And then finally, student engagement, right? Which is when a student comes to school, how often do they talk? How often do they dialogue? You know, chronic absenteeism is, again, a very negative, reactionary type of intervention that we do. If a student misses a significant amount of class, well then, you know, we start going and doing home visits and trying to do interventions for them to get them here, right? When really we need to look at things a little bit more proactively. If a student misses class, why did they miss class, right? What were the factors that led to that? Again, we can reach out to those families through Panorama, through other surveys, and send to them to say, what are your inhibitors or that's keeping you from coming to school, right? Is it transportation? Is it anxiety? Is it these other things? So that we can be a little bit more proactive in addressing those students' needs. So we can leverage the importance of the SEL. We recognize the strengths of the school and the staff, which a lot of things are based on research now, showing one of the most important ways to show growth in students, staff, schools, is to recognize their strengths and build from your strengths, right? Again, like I said, when we come into testing, you were all probably part of our conversation in August. It didn't feel too good, right? Because we're just really focusing on all our weaknesses. Here, we're going to start focusing on our strengths and really build out from there, right? And then the last thing, and I really like this, focusing on the whole child. That's a very important idea, right? And it's something that's really prevalent in education, especially coming off the pandemic. But also, how do we measure that? How do we know we're focusing on the whole child? And so one of the things I want to introduce, and so Mr. Snowdy, if you can go on to the next slide, and I think that'll take us to our Panorama examples. So we did a student SEL survey, as Ms. Flores was talking about this morning, or at the start of the meeting, and she was really confident, excited. You know, Ms. Rodriguez talked about parents and their input, how we're going to gather that input, and I would say many of our decisions, again, you know, Ms. Murillo, you were talking about, you know, a lot of your constituents call you and things like that, right? And there's value in a lot of that, but I would also say, there's a limited access to that, and a lot of the ways that we make decisions as educators has always been made on who's the strongest voice, right? Who can call me the most times, who's the most interested in getting their particular one view out there. Whereas surveys and data is one of those things that we can give access to everybody and really gather and make a group, form a group consensus. So Mr. Snowdy, if you can flip over, I think, to a couple of my PDFs that I've had. So I've provided for you here grades 3 through 5. This is our student efficacy snapshot, and this shows district trends. Each school and each principal has access to their own. Also, the teachers have access to their own. So this is brand new. I don't think there's a full understanding of how to utilize this tool, but it is a very important tool and really could become very powerful for everybody. But one of the things I would point out, grades 3 through 5, you look at our self-efficacy. So again, going back to that academic struggle, when I'm faced with a difficult problem, how confident am I that I can overcome that? About 52% of our kids answer that favorably, that they're confident, right? If we can, and you can see that's low on the national average. If we can bump that up, 75, 80% of our kids, it will be reflected in the test scores, okay? So for the most part, you know, and I'm not going to spend too much time on these. Mr. Snowdy, if you could go to the next one. This is our competency and well-being, again, school climate. Kind of an interesting thing, because I think a lot of us had felt like school safety was an issue at the high school, but we see right here at the elementary level, school safety is the biggest issue, right? And we didn't, you know, I don't think we'd given a lot of thought of that, right? And so it's something that's really given us as an academic team, how do we address these factors within the schools, because that has a massive impact on achievement. And these are grades 3 through 5. So the next group is going to be 6 to 12. And again, the same topics, Mr. Snowdy. So in grades 6 to 12, again, that efficacy, high school students actually lose a little bit of efficacy. So when they're challenged, again, that fear of failure really permeates the students. And so you see this area of emotion regulation is very low, or 48%, and then self-efficacy very low. So again, they lack confidence as they're going through this. And then the last one, Mr. Snowdy, is again our well-being. And then you see this trend. This is why I was so proud of Ms. Flores earlier talking about this, and because again, DPA is a little bit of an outlier at the high school level. Those kids, the teacher-student relationships at that particular school is extremely high. I think it's in the top 10% nationally, right? It's amazing, right? And you see it. That's why they're able to have the student outcomes that they have. At the high school level here, teacher-student level, the traditional high school, we really need to think and be conscious of what are our teacher-student relationships and our sense of belonging, because you see among those students, that's pretty low, right? And if we can improve those areas, again, will probably influence the test scores in a little bit different way than just making kids do more reading and more math, right? So changing some of those factors will really have a big impact. So that, and I apologize if I went on very long, right? I know I want to stand for questions, but again, I was just very excited about this particular data and information. I hope that it kind of brings a lot of the discussions, a lot of the things that we're doing as an academic team together.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Duggan?
I have more of a comment. Thank you so much. Yes, I agree. I'm a witness myself with my own daughter, and I applaud Mrs. Suggs and Mr. W. They went above and beyond to help that kid out, and I'm like, more than I did. And yes, I mean, I see the teacher-student relationship, but also the administration and the student relationship that there is out there is amazing, and I'm super proud of that school. And I'm talking about my school because, my kids go there. I don't know about yours. But I mean, Mr. W. leaving and Ms. Suggs being there, and just the way I see her interaction is not, I'm the principal and you will respect me, as she mess around with the kids, but at the same time, there's that respect, and I think that helps a lot with a sense of belonging, and the kids wanted to go to school. It's not so much, the teacher and student relationship, so it was more of a comment.
Thank you. Completely agree.
Anybody else? Okay, I don't believe so. Thank you, Mr. Duggan, for your presentation. Thank you. Have a good night. Okay, moving on to discussion item 10B, MOU, Help New Mexico. And thank you, ladies. I was looking, who are those lovely ladies sitting out there? And I bet you they're for this. And thank you for your patience. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this item will be presented by Ms. Barciaga, and I believe members of Help New Mexico.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. For many years, Head Start and Gadsden Pre-K program have coexisted in the same spaces, in the same community, never collaborating, never communicating, and often competing. Tonight, we would like to make a change, and we'd like to begin the change in Chaparral. We bring before you a MOU between Help New Mexico Head Start and our Early Childhood Department. This is a draft, and in this draft, we will partner by Help New Mexico supporting our 3-year-old classrooms and GISD supporting our 4-year-old classrooms. Please keep in mind that our current funding for pre-K classrooms does not support 3-year-olds. So having Help New Mexico in our classrooms would be a big asset. We would like to begin with one classroom at Sunrise Elementary, and in a partnership and continued communication and collaboration, we would like this to grow into all our Gadsden communities. So with your permission, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent, before we open up for discussion, I'd like to acknowledge Help New Mexico staff, families, and I would like to invite Ms. Gloria Lopez, Vice President of Help New Mexico, to share her thoughts.
I am going to take this thing off. Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dempsey. My name is Gloria Lopez. I am the Vice President to Help New Mexico Office of Learning and Academic Opportunity. First of all, I just want to give some mention to who is Help New Mexico. Help New Mexico is a nonprofit statewide agency that's been in existence here in New Mexico since 1965, a little bit after I was born. The Office of Learning and Academic Opportunity, and that is my job and my responsibility to oversee that pillar under Help New Mexico's umbrella. The Office of Learning and Academic Opportunity provides early childhood services in 5 counties in the southern part of the state. We provide Head Start, early Head Start, pre-K, and we also do some private child care in some of our communities. We provide services for about 750 children in the counties of Hidalgo, which is Lordsburg and Animas. We also provide services in Luna County, which is Deming and Columbus. We provide services in Sierra County, which is Tier C. And we also provide services in Otero County, which is Alamogordo, La Luz, Tularosa. And we are also proud that we provide services here in Doña Ana, in Chaparral, and also in Sunland Park. We have been in this community, in Sunland Park and in Chaparral, for about, I would say, approximately 15 years. And like Estrella said, we have been living in the same community, serving the same children, but yet not truly integrating and providing collaborative partnerships between Head Start and public education. And so we're very, very proud that we have started this conversation on this memorandum of understanding. And I think it is critical to note, and there is just so many expansion opportunities for us. Currently, we serve here in Chaparral 34 Head Start children, and 16, we just got funded early Head Start. And that serves families from expectant mothers all the way up to 5 years of age. And that's here in Chaparral with 50 children, and in Sunland Park, an additional 50 children. I think this collaborative partnership has a lot of benefits. I think it's a win-win. It's a win-win for Help New Mexico. It's a win-win for Gadsden Independent School District, but most importantly, it's a win-win for the children and families that we serve. I'm calling this collaborative. I think I just thought of this as I drove here from my community in Deming. I thought of this as this is a building bridges collaborative, and that's exactly what we want to do. We want to build that bridge from Help New Mexico to public schools. And this is why. This will strengthen the Head Start to kindergarten transition, which is very, very critical. This will also give us the opportunity to align our curriculum and ongoing assessment. We want to be sure that we are making sure that our children in Head Start are school ready and make a smooth transition over to public schools. We also feel that this collaborative will build relational supports between the two entities. Establishing continuity for children, families, and staff through this collaborative is crucial. Sharing of critical information and data to one another will help transition children into being school ready. Fostering alignment between settings, it just pleases my heart that we could actually have a classroom right within a public school. And I'm looking forward to the collaborative in Sunrise. Most importantly is the parent engagement piece that is so critical to this overall success of children. This will increase our parent engagement in children's education and also in the transition. And also, there is a way that we have formed in our MOU that we would share each other's wait list. 3-year-olds to us, 4-year-olds to you, Gadsden Independent School District. This has a lot of opportunity to grow, and I especially like that this would be an academic success and well-being of every single child that is served through this collaborative. Thank you so much for listening.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, a couple of more facts. Chaparral and Sunland Park are our largest growing areas. We also have waiting lists that consist of mostly 3-year-olds in these areas. So with that, I open it up for discussion.
Questions, comments? I was just going to say that it's very exciting, not only for my community, but for the community of Sunland Park. And thank you, Ms. Lopez, for collaborating with Ms. Burciaga. It's an awesome opportunity, like you said, ultimately for our children. So thank you so much, and thank you for being patient again this evening. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to discussion item 10C, attendance zones, Yucca Heights Elementary and Santa Teresa Elementary. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, some of you may recall that a few pre-pandemic, I think it's probably been 3 years ago, maybe 4, that it was brought to our attention. We were struggling with the size of enrollment at Santa Teresa Elementary and Yucca Heights. Probably here today to report Santa Teresa Elementary's maybe gotten a little more stable, but we still haven't solved the issue regarding, we have families literally across the street that don't attend, and I think it might be, we might want to review that. I also mentioned after a meeting with Sunland Park Mayor, definitely informed me of a lot of growth in that Santa Teresa area. So I think there's some conversations there we probably would need to have. And then Yucca Heights is now, it has been for several years our largest elementary. It is now larger than our middle school here in Chaparral. And we literally are out of room at Yucca Heights. So I guess what I wanted to do is bring this to the board's attention, get it on everyone's radar, start thinking about how we want to approach this. My advice at Yucca Heights is this summer we would probably need to go back, have a community meeting, get some input, and consider getting a little bit more aggressive with moving the attendance zone, so that we can create some space there. We do have some room in some schools, on this side of Yucca Heights, meaning, maybe Sunrise and Desert Trail. We'll try to split those up evenly to make sure we don't overwhelm those schools as well. I just want to put that on your radar. If you have questions or concerns around that, how you might want to approach that, we have some good time to plan. But what I would say is that, by June, we want to probably have those community meetings and notify those families. One of the biggest things I'm probably struggling with the most at Yucca Heights is kind of a similar issue with Santa Teresa Elementary is, if we don't get very thoughtful about what we do there, we literally could have people loading their child on a bus to ride past Yucca Heights to go to another school. And that just doesn't, just to be candid, it just seems like it doesn't make any common sense at all. And so that may mean we have to be more aggressive than sometimes we want to be. And thoughtful about how we would want to implement that, because we want to be respectful to families and the community, but recognize that those two areas in particular, we have some growth, which is good, and then we got some planning to think about how we address that growth. So I just wanted to put it on your radar, start talking about it, how we want that to roll out, and think about what that might look like. And you may not have thoughts now, but please feel free to email me those ideas and thoughts, and we'll probably have this on the next meetings as we lead up to start talking about how we're going to approach it.
questions, comments, concerns?
Madam President, Superintendent Dempsey, I'm sure you'll do that, but I mean, the sooner we start, can you send out maps?
Oh, yes, sir. Mr. Castillo, maps of those attendance zones, right?
Correct.
Absolutely. Those are probably the pieces we need to start studying.
Right.
And I'll get those to you. And then what I'll try to do is give you a map that says, well, if we move the line here, here's what the impact you'll have. If you move the line here, here's the impact you'll have. Now, I'll be really honest. With Yucca Heights, I think we're going to have to I think we can accomplish what we're talking about here by being pretty aggressive but reasonable. Santa Teresa Elementary, you know, if all the homes that are proposed actually do get built and they have students, we right now do not have the space. There's no way to move the attendance zone to accommodate it. So there's maybe a little deeper conversation to be had there about how we might approach that. Now, the other thing the mayor was very positive about that I will share with the board, you know, a couple of you that have been on the board for a little while, it's been a little interesting as we see these developments coming up. We've had a few of the developers approach myself and share maybe what area they feel like they would set aside. And then when I say set aside, then they would put a price tag on it, ask us to purchase it, and then sometimes when they report back to a governing council, call it a gift. Well, I'm not sure I call that a gift if I pay for it. However, what the mayor had shared with me is that they have a lot of authority when they make those agreements around development. And one of his considerations that he would like to see in there was, for example, a minimum of 15 acres donated, truly donated, no cost to the district. Now, when those kind of things happen, that's when I think developers are very serious about partnering with us and not just trying to make a profit. And so I understand, Mr. Costa, I got a little off there. We need to get maps out so we all understand those areas. I think that probably is the first step. So that's going to be my first step, is to start getting some maps together and getting those to you so we can start studying those.
And I guess I had a concern is that, you know, for Yucca Heights, you know, how many of these kiddos are in dual language programs, and then, you know, the closest two schools would be, what is it, Sunrise Elementary and Desert Trail. But how far along are we at Sunrise Elementary with implementing dual language? So it's a concern, because then the other one would be this one.
Madam President, very good point. We need to consider the impact of those dual language. Sunrise has just barely started that journey. So you're right, we're not very far along in any way, shape, or form in that. Desert Trail is well established as a dual language school, but those are factors that we might want to consider. Might even consider another thought. Now, this is a little different than just attendance zones, and I don't, you know, I haven't done the math on it to see what it would accomplish, but I would gingerly test the waters for the board to consider maybe magnet schools. Maybe you make Yucca Heights a magnet school for dual language, which means non-participants go to Sunrise or Desert Trail. Now, that wouldn't solve your busing thing where a student can be picked up and pass the closest school, but then it's a parent choice to either participate in dual language or not participate, and they would go to those non-participant classrooms. So you can still offer dual language at the others, but Yucca Heights would be a dual language only school, creating a magnet. And we had a little conversation around that. And I'm not sure that at the time the board was very interested in that thought. It's just another option to consider as we go down this road.
And then I did hear you, I appreciate what you said about how, I mean, obviously, it's going to happen. And yes, I agree that hindsight, we should have been more aggressive with both campuses. And so I do appreciate your comments saying that we were going to have to look very closely because, yes, you know, I can't imagine busing kids that are literally right there next to the school for both campuses. And I will say this in public, yes, I love that idea, but also at the Santa Teresa area is also the possibility of bringing those families that literally are right in front of Santa Teresa Elementary into that campus. And because also, I think I was asking you earlier, I was also curious, and you had mentioned that the apartments do get to go to the school, but not the houses, and how you also mentioned that the apartments are very crucial to Title I funds of Santa Teresa Elementary.
Madam President, very important conversation. The apartments there in that area are they're low-income housing units, and they are, without those, Santa Teresa Elementary will not qualify for Title I funds at all. And so that's a very important component for a funding stream. I also want to caution a little bit. So I want to make sure that we stay on track of what I'm envisioning, or what I understand the numbers to be, right? So if we talked about the entire neighborhood right around Santa Teresa Elementary, I think in average, and Mr. Smith's here with us, he can correct me, I think we're probably talking around 70 students. Right now, there's no way 70 students fit. When I talk about the families that are literally right across the street, they are literally right across the street. Not the ones that you can walk around the block to go to their homes. No, there's no way they'll fit with our current facility. So I'm literally talking maybe 10 houses at the most. Not all of those 10 houses have children that attend elementary school in them. So I'm confident we may be able to fit those people that I'm talking about in. No way could I put 70 in there. There's no way it'll fit. So, you know, and I have another component of a conversation. I'm not sure we're ready to have it, but, you know, I want you to know what I'm thinking. And so if these developers were willing to truly donate land, then another option could be, because keep in mind, you have when you open a school, you have the cost to build the school, but that's not the big expense. The big expense is staffing it. So that's where it gets, right, year-over-year expenses. So what's a solution? Combine other schools in the area to open a new school. Okay, and this gets hard. You could move the students from Santa Teresa Elementary to Desert View, and they will fit. Designate Sunland Park. Did I say Sunland Park? Am I saying these right? Let me back up. I want to make sure I say this correctly. I don't want to mess this up. Sunland Park Elementary students would go to Desert View. Sunland Park could become a true pre-K center for serving all of that area. And then because you're not going to, once you move your Sunland Park to Desert View, you don't need all that staff. That could become your new staff, year-over-year costs, for your new elementary that gets built in the Santa Teresa area. Those are hard conversations for communities to hear. But they are a reality that I truly believe over the next, if not 10 years, 20 years, if we don't make some decisions, we will be struggling to find spaces for kids. The struggle, here's the big struggle. This is the part that just is, Sunland Park as a community, how tied are they to that elementary? Right? I mean, I'm going to bet they're pretty close to it. They're pretty tied to it. They want their children to go there. It's a neighborhood school. It's very, right? Are they going to be okay as a community changing it to a pre-K center? a lot of conversations to be had.
Okay, thank you. No further questions or comments, correct? Okay, thank you. Okay, and moving on to our last discussion item, 10D monthly budget report for the month ending January 31st, 2022. Superintendent Dempsey.
Ms. Villarreal is going to help us with this item.
Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Dempsey, board members. I bring forth the January 31st monthly budget report. The operational fund revenues as of January 31st were $75.5 million, which represent 58.85% of our budgeted revenues. The operational fund expenditures as of January 31st, 2022 were $65.2 million, which represent 37.02% of our budgeted expenditures. The January 31st, 2022 operational fund cash balance before loans was $67.6 million. The cash balance after the temporary loans of $8.4 million to the grant funds was $59.1 million. The grant funds that reported a negative cash balance as of January 31st, 2022 totaled $7 million, which represent an increase of $1.4 million from the prior month. The total revenues for all funds as of January 31st, 2022 were $132.9 million. The total expenditures for all funds as of January 31st were $114.9 million. Our pledged collateral in all our bank accounts were in compliance, and we've also included our monthly reviews that we do of our 3 schools that we select, and as you can see on that page, they were all in compliance. I stand for any questions.
Questions, comments, or concerns for Ms. Villalobos? I don't believe we have any. Thank you, Ms. Villalobos. Villarreal, discúlpame. Corrígeme, por favor. Okay, so moving on to our last item. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Cano has made a motion to adjourn. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. We are now adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.